The story begins with Ray, wounded and alone in a dark dungeon, struggling to stay alive. He had to heal himself quickly. He needed to prove his worth. Without wasting any time, he used heal on himself. Yggdrasil's Labyrinth was an SSS ranked dungeon, one of the 7 most difficult labyrinths in the world. These 7 labyrinths were unexplored, rumored to hold powerful secret treasures. A month ago, an adventurer group cleared an A-ranked dungeon, earning the right to challenge higher-ranked ones. Now they were inside Yggdrasil's Labyrinth. Ray was part of this group, an A-ranked team called Gunkino Dongwa. Every member was highly skilled. A lizard man lunged at Ray, but before it could reach him, a powerful magic attack sent it flying. The spell came from their black mage, a descendant of the ancient witch File. Their enchanter wielded 2 swords infused with lightning and wind magic. She was known as the Sword Saintess, Himeno. Another member, a towering warrior with immense strength, stood as their team's defender, the greatsword warrior, Suglinst. Nearby, a mage completed his spell, engulfing the monsters in flames. This was their leader, Loki, a genius in magic, combat, and strategy. And then there was Ray, their white mage, the team's healer, doing his best to keep everyone alive. After the battle, Suglinst called Ray over to heal Himeno. She insisted it was just a scratch but wanted to be sure. Ray used his magic to heal her wounds. However, he had a serious weakness as a white mage. Right after healing, he collapsed. Annoyed, Himeno kicked him in the face and called him disgusting. She couldn't believe her day was getting worse. Loki went over to check on Ray and gave him a potion to recover from exhaustion. He helped Ray drink it. Ray apologized for wasting such a valuable item on himself. When he looked around, he noticed the others staring at him with disgust. Loki told him to ignore them and advised him to rest until he could move again. Ray had a major flaw as a healer. His magic power was extremely low. Using heal even once drained all his energy, leaving him completely unable to move. Since his healing was so limited, it made the team's battle strategies much harder to plan. Compared to his teammates, who were strong fighters, he felt useless. Yet despite this, Loki invited him to join the party. Ray didn't understand why. Once he regained his strength, he rejoined the team. Even with his doubts, he was grateful to Loki for choosing him. He felt like he finally had a place where he belonged. However, the others still saw him as a burden. Loki then reminded everyone of their goal, the lowest floor of the dungeon. He was determined for their party to be the first to conquer Yggdrasil's labyrinth and claim the secret treasure. The team assumed it would be no harder than an A-ranked dungeon. Ray silently vowed to do his best and not slow them down. But none of them knew the true horror that awaited in the S-ranked dungeon. On the 125th floor, Suglin lashed out, complaining about the monsters they had faced. They were as strong as S-rank creatures, far more powerful than what they had encountered before. Until now, they had only fought A-ranked monsters, but the difference between the two was like night and day. Loki hadn't expected them to be this strong either. The sudden challenge had put everyone on edge. Himeno cried out in fear, not wanting to die. File wondered why such powerful monsters only appeared on the 125th floor. No one spoke after that. The weight of their situation pressed down on them. Ray stayed silent, knowing that if he said anything, the others, already under extreme stress, might take their frustration out on him. Suglinst finally suggested going back, unwilling to face those monsters again. Himeno quickly agreed but pointed out the real problem. How could they return? Ray had also noticed that their progress had been smooth until this floor, but now they were stuck. There was no way back with just their own strength. They needed a special method to escape. Loki then brought up an idea, using the stone. Suglinst immediately knew what he meant. It was the one they had found at the lowest floor of an A-ranked dungeon. Himeno and File agreed that it was their best chance. Ray called it the teleport stone, a rare item that could instantly transport the user to any location, but it could only be used once. Loki opened a small box and confirmed that they had 5 of them, just enough for the whole team. Ray recalled how valuable each one was. If sold, they would be worth thousands of gold coins, but in a moment like this, there was no question. When it came to choosing between money and life was always the right choice. Loki suddenly announced that it was time. Ray wasn't sure what he meant, but he watched as the others moved forward with him. He assumed they planned to cover as much ground as possible before escaping. It was expected from the guild's greatest genius, and Ray couldn't help but admire Loki. But then, Loki turned to Ray and told him he was being banished from the team. Ray froze in shock, his legs giving out beneath him. His mind raced, trying to understand what Loki meant. Before he could ask, Loki questioned why he was spacing out and if he had even heard what was said. Ray quickly confirmed that he had, just as a stone flew straight at his face. Suglin scoffed, asking if they really needed to explain it to him. Himeno then pressed her heel down on Ray's hand, calling him slow and disgusting. She accused him of being a pervert, always staring at her during battles. When Ray tried to lift his head, she kicked him in the face, accusing him of trying to look under her skirt. Ray protested, saying he only watched everyone closely so he could react quickly if someone needed healing. But no one believed him. Their faces were filled with disgust. Even File looked away, refusing to say anything. Then Loki made things clear. Someone at Ray's level couldn't support them against stronger monsters. He was a burden because of his weakness. Ray couldn't deny that, but he reminded them that he helped in other ways, analyzing enemies, finding weaknesses, gathering dungeon information, cooking, and even handling all the chores so their travels were more comfortable. Loki sighed and told Ray that he didn't understand the expectations placed on their team. He reminded him that they were supposed to defeat the demon lord who threatened the world, and even the king had high hopes for them. If someone as weak as Ray stayed with them, they had no future. Ray admitted that he didn't have the same strength as the others, but he couldn't understand why Loki had chosen him in the first place. When he was 11, he had been a slave, and Loki was the one who took him in. Gathering his courage, Ray asked Loki why he had chosen him. He just wanted to know his worth and where he truly belonged. Loki scoffed and called him foolish for not realizing it. He explained that he had only wanted a cheap slave who could heal. Back then, he had been a poor E-rank adventurer and would have taken anyone as long as they were inexpensive and a white mage. Now, he regretted that choice and hoped he would never end up with someone as useless as Ray again. This time, he planned to find a proper white mage. Since their team was already full of A-ranked adventurers, anyone would be a better fit. It finally sank in. Ray was being abandoned. And worse, he was being left behind in the deepest level of an SSS-ranked dungeon filled with terrifying monsters. Loki didn't even want to waste an expensive teleport stone on him. He had found the perfect place to get rid of Ray. Ray didn't want to believe it. He didn't want to die. Desperate, he begged Loki for mercy and a chance to prove himself. Loki agreed, but instead of helping, he stabbed Ray and ordered him to heal his own wound. Pain shot through Ray's body as he screamed. Loki smirked and told him to heal himself or die. Himeno and Suglins burst into laughter, amused by Loki's cruelty. Ray felt like his body was about to give out, but he forced himself to move. With trembling hands, he grabbed the dagger and pulled it out. Blood poured from the wound, but he pressed his palm against it and used heal. Slowly, his flesh mended until there wasn't even a scar left. Loki watched with interest. He admitted that Ray's healing speed was impressive, but that was the only thing worthwhile about him. Ray refused to give up. He wouldn't fall here. The others stared in shock as he pushed himself back to his feet. Loki too was surprised. Normally Ray would collapse after using heal, but this time he stood strong. Ray asked if he had proven himself enough. Loki laughed and said he was only joking. Without warning, he punched Ray and knocked him down again. He scoffed, saying Ray wasn't even worth using a teleport stone on. This was a perfect chance to get rid of him. As a final insult, Loki left behind the dagger he had used to stab Ray, claiming he could use it to defend himself. Suglinst found it amusing that Ray had to survive on his own now. Himeno wondered if this dungeon would become his grave. Without another word, they activated their teleport stones and vanished. Ray sat there, gripping the dagger tightly. He thought about everything he had endured, every moment of pain, every humiliation, just to protect the only place he called home. And yet Loki had discarded him as if he were nothing. Suddenly a monster appeared. Ray tried to move, but his body was still weak. Worse, he was trapped near the edge of a steep cliff. He let out a bitter laugh. Was this really his fate? His family had been killed by monsters. He had been enslaved. He had been nothing more than a punching bag for his team. Had his life ever meant anything at all? Before he could find an answer, the monster attacked. Its massive blow sent Ray flying backward. The force knocked him off the cliff. As he plummeted toward the water below, he heard a voice. Someone called himself pitiful. The words echoed in his mind. He had heard that voice before, but where? Then everything went dark. Ray slowly regained consciousness, his mind still hazy. As he opened his eyes, he saw a smug-looking girl standing in front of him. Confused, he stared at her, wondering why a girl was in the dungeon. The girl seemed amused and even joked that she was, in fact, just a girl. She noticed Ray staring at her and assumed he was captivated by her cuteness. Ray admitted she was cute, but that was the least of his concerns. The girl, however, blushed and playfully asked for more compliments. Shaking off his confusion, Ray focused on the situation. He asked why she was in the dungeon and what floor they were on. The girl told him to calm down, saying she could answer his second question, but not the first. She then revealed they were on the 200th floor, the very bottom of Yggdrasil's labyrinth. Ray was shocked. He couldn't understand how he ended up at the lowest level and wondered if escaping was even possible. Seeing his panic, the girl asked if he wanted to leave. She confidently claimed he could do so any time since he had already obtained the secret treasure. Still confused, Ray asked what she meant. The girl explained that he had gained Yggdrasil's secret treasure and asked if he could feel its aura. She then pointed out that he had been cursed by Yggdrasil, with his rotten left eye as proof. Ray asked what she meant by cursed. The girl explained that his magic circuit was now linked to Yggdrasil, which essentially granted him unlimited magic power. How he used that power was up to him. but with it, escaping the dungeon was completely possible. After hearing this, Ray asked who the girl was. She introduced herself as Norn. The name sounded familiar to him, but he couldn't remember why. Noticing his confusion, Norn saw that he looked like a white mage and suggested he use heal on himself. Ray hesitated, admitting that he could use the spell but seemed afraid to do so. Norn asked what was wrong, and he explained that casting heal once completely drained his energy. Norn gently patted his head and told him to try it anyway. Ray cast heal on himself, and to his surprise, he didn't feel tired at all. His magic power remained untouched. Norn then asked if he could feel his body overflowing with magic. She explained that this was Yggdrasil's magic power. As she had mentioned earlier, Ray's magic circuit was now connected to Yggdrasil. Normally, magic power flowed from the core of a magic circuit, which acted as a gateway. This core couldn't be easily restored with heal. However, when Ray had been swept away and ended up on the lowest level, he had received Yggdrasil's curse. This caused his magic core to shift from his left eye to Yggdrasil itself. Realizing this, Ray finally understood that he could now cast magic without worrying about running out of energy. Norn confirmed that he basically had unlimited magic power. However, Ray still didn't understand why he had been connected to Yggdrasil in the first place. Norn asked if he was curious. Ray admitted that he was. This was his own body after all, and he wanted to know more about the so-called curse he had received. Norn explained that the spring was the reason why this had happened to Ray. She said she had found him floating in the water and pulled him out. While being swept away, he had accidentally swallowed some of the spring water. She then revealed that the secret treasure was actually the spring itself, known as the World Tree's Tears. It was said that this water could even bring the dead back to life. The tree Ray had been leaning against was none other than the World Tree itself, the one that had formed the dungeon. He was stunned to see it with his own eyes, especially in the lowest level of an SSS-ranked dungeon, a place no adventurer had ever reached. But what shocked him even more was the realization that the secret treasure was spring water that granted unlimited magic power. Seeing it and having access to it felt unbelievable. Meanwhile, Norn was thrilled to learn that her garden was actually considered as an SSS-ranked dungeon. Ray had already figured out his current situation, but now he was curious about Norn. However, he remembered that she had avoided explaining why she was inside the dungeon in the first place. Still, he asked her why she was alone and if she had been surviving there all this time by herself. Norn confidently stated that she was much stronger than he thought. Ray agreed that age had nothing to do with strength, but it was still surprising since she looked no older than 12, and dungeons usually had age restrictions. When Norn asked if he was doubting her, she claimed she could easily defeat S-ranked monsters on her own. Ray found that hard to believe since even his A-ranked party had stood no chance against them. Norn admitted that her appearance might seem unreliable, but putting that aside, she asked if Ray wanted to leave the dungeon. Ray looked up, deep in thought. To escape, he would have to defeat S-ranked monsters, something he wasn't sure he could do. Even with unlimited magic power, he was still a white mage, a non-combatant. He had no idea how to make it out on his own, and even if he did escape, what would he do? His party had already banished him. He had nowhere to return to. He had nothing left. For a moment, he considered staying in the dungeon forever. Maybe he could find some form of peace here, living in the depths until the end of his life. He could no longer save anyone. With that thought in mind, he turned to Norn and asked if he could stay in the lowest levels of the dungeon. Norn had said Ray could stay, but she was surprised by his request. He told her he wanted to stay for a while, which confused her since he had been so eager to leave before. Picking up his knife, Ray explained that he had changed his mind. If Norn didn't mind, he wanted to live in the area too, and asked what she ate down there. Norn was surprised at how quickly Ray's thoughts had shifted. However, she told him that eating wasn't necessary in this place. Magic constantly provided their bodies with nourishment, keeping them alive even without food. Even minor injuries healed instantly. Because of this, Ray was now very close to being immortal. Ray couldn't believe it, he had become nearly immortal. But Norn warned him that nearly didn't mean invincible. If he were beheaded, that would be the end of him. She considered asking him to use heal on himself, but his body had already recovered on its own. Since Ray planned to live there, Norn assumed he would naturally learn more over time. She also pointed out how weak he currently was. If he left the area as he was now, he would become nothing more than food for monsters. She told him he had to get stronger to survive because monsters still roamed below. Ray suddenly realized he wasn't in a safe place at all. Determined, he swore to do his best. Norn decided to start teaching him the basics. Ray didn't know how strong she was, but he made up his mind. He would become strong enough not to be a burden. He never wanted to feel weak again. From that moment, he resolved to grow stronger. 3 years later, on the 180th floor, Ray stood tense, gripping his knife. The ground suddenly cracked open and a massive snake-like monster emerged. As it lunged, Ray blocked its attack, but the creature swung the sharp blade on its tail to strike again. Ray quickly channeled magic power into himself and his knife, then swung with all his strength. His blade cut through the monster's tail, severing the bladed tip. The snake let out a piercing shriek and tried to counter, but before it could, Ray had already reached its head. With a swift motion, he drove his knife deep into the creature. In its final moments, the snake glared at Ray, but he remained unfazed. He simply pressed his knife in deeper, pouring magic power into the monster. In an instant, its head burst into a fountain of blood. The massive creature collapsed with a heavy thud, lifeless. Ray took a deep breath, relieved that the battle was over. He called for Norn, who approached with a proud expression. She observed him for a moment, then remarked on how much he had changed. Defeating the 180th floor's boss monster, the Shadow Viper, was no small feat, and she was clearly impressed. Ray explained that he had strengthened both his body and knife using Yggdrasil's magic power. He then transferred that power into the monster's body through the knife. Norn was pleased to see that Ray had improved in controlling his magic, especially compared to when he first started. Ray, however, preferred not to think about those early days. Norn remembered a time when Ray had been killed by a small monster similar to an arc rabbit. Despite its cute appearance, the rabbit was an S-ranked monster. If not for the secret treasure, Ray would not have survived. His ability to grow stronger was entirely due to Yggdrasil's magic, which gave him unlimited healing. His half-immortal body also allowed him to experiment repeatedly, improving his accuracy in using magic. Over time, his healing abilities became more efficient. Each time he adjusted his magic circuit, he could even restore the eye he had once lost. Norn admitted that even under her guidance, she had expected Ray to take 100 years to reach his current strength. Yet it had only taken him 3 years. She called him a monster himself. Ray, however, insisted that it was simply because Norn was a good teacher. Norn thanked him but told him not to be too modest. Despite this, Ray's younger self still believed he was weak. He suddenly turned to look behind him. Norn noticed and asked if he was seeing another illusion. Since arriving in the dungeon, Ray had occasionally seen a child version of himself. Norn suspected it was a side effect of his connection with Yggdrasil. As the Tree of Life, Yggdrasil accumulated and created all living things, and it might also be trying to absorb Ray's life. Ray could feel it. Every time he was on the verge of death, something was pulling at him. Norn couldn't say for sure, but she wondered if the magic flowing through his body carried traces of the dead. She warned him not to let it consume him. Ray nodded and tightened his grip on his chest. Ray and Norn soon had a sparring session. As they fought, Ray mentioned that 3 years had already passed. Norn noticed something was on his mind and asked if he was starting to miss the outside world. She also called him cute, but Ray quickly denied it. He explained that he wasn't thinking about the outside world. He was thinking about the time he had spent with her. It had gone by in an instant. He had been too focused on surviving to even notice. Back then, time felt like it had stopped. But now, it was moving too fast. He had died too many times, but he had finally become strong enough to survive in the dungeon. Just then, Norn tripped, causing her skirt to flip. Ray quickly looked away. Norn, noticing this, glared at him and kicked him, warning him not to look away during a fight. Ray rolled on the ground in pain as Norn remarked that she thought he had grown, but he was still just as naive. Ray, still recovering, thought that any man would have looked away in that moment. That night, the two sat together, gazing at the stars. They remained silent for a while until Ray finally asked if Norn had always been alone. She was surprised by the question, but then explained that very few people ever entered the dungeon. More importantly, ordinary humans wouldn't even be able to reach the lower levels. Ray agreed, remembering his battle against the Shadow Viper. He had died countless times before he could finally defeat it. No matter how much magic power someone had, facing an SSS-ranked monster like that would almost always mean death on the first encounter. Ray wondered if Norn had ever thought about leaving. Norn simply said she couldn't leave the dungeon. If she could, she would have done so a long time ago since she was strong enough. Ray thought she might have stayed because she liked the quiet, and Norn agreed. But that wasn't the only reason she remained. She didn't explain further, and Ray stopped asking. Even so, Norn was curious about the world outside. She then asked Ray if he still wanted to return, as she assumed he had something left to do. Ray looked up at the stars, lost in thought. He was no longer connected to Gunkinodongwa, and he couldn't see himself going back. All that remained were lingering feelings of hatred and frustration. He questioned what else was left for him, and why he had even wished for death in the first place. Then Norn asked if there was someone outside the dungeon he truly wanted to see. Ray hesitated before recalling a woman. A realization struck him and he suddenly stood up, startling Norn. At that moment, he understood. There was still something he needed to do. He made up his mind to leave the dungeon. Ray once knew a red-haired woman named Nenemoa before he joined Gunkinodongwa. She was a fellow slave. Ray stayed close to Nene, treating her like an older sister. Whenever the slave traders hurt him, Nini stepped in to protect him. She had promised to keep him safe, but in return, she asked that if she ever found herself in danger, he would be the one to save her. But Ray was destined to be sold, and he knew he couldn't keep that promise. Nane knew it too. She had always been there for him, offering kindness and warmth when no one else did. Even after escaping slavery and becoming an adventurer, he still hadn't repaid her. However, this time he believed he finally could. With the power he now possessed, he planned to find her and rescue her. If his magic could help, then maybe he could free Nini from whatever burden she carried. 5 months later, Ray made his way toward the labyrinth's exit with Norn's help. As he looked around, something felt familiar. Noticing his hesitation, Norn asked what was wrong. Ray said the place looked familiar and asked where they were. Norn told him they had reached the 125th floor. Ray realized they still had a long way to go before reaching the exit. Thanks to Yggdrasil's magic, he didn't feel physically exhausted, but the journey was wearing on his mind. Norn reminded him that at best it would take another 2 years to make it out. For the past 5 months, the two had focused only on reaching the exit, but most of the battles along the way had been fought by Ray. Norn claimed it was part of his training, but in reality, she just enjoyed watching him struggle. However, she always stepped in when he was in serious danger. She couldn't help but laugh when Ray was drenched in monster saliva back on the 160th floor. Ray, on the other hand, wished she had helped him, but Norn insisted that it was no longer training and that she was only laughing because Ray had become much stronger. She also found it amusing how desperately he tried to wash his clothes, embarrassed when she caught him half-dressed. Just as Ray was about to ask her something serious, Norn suddenly spotted a bag and rushed toward it, hoping to find clothes for him. Now that she mentioned it, Ray finally realized he was still covered in monster blood and saliva. Ray suddenly recognized the bag. It was his from years ago. Norn called it a miracle. As he looked at it, he remembered Loki taking it away with him. That was when he realized why this place felt familiar. It was the same spot where he had fallen before. Norn rummaged through the bag and frowned. There were no spare clothes, only food. Frustrated, she complained that they had underestimated Yggdrasil's labyrinth. Ray had no response. He couldn't argue with her. Just then, he sensed something nearby. A monster stepped forward, the same turtle-like creature that had pushed him off the cliff. Without hesitation, Ray took the opportunity to strike first. He leaped above the monster and slashed at it, declaring that he was no longer the same as before. However, the attack barely left a mark. He quickly realized that this creature was even tougher than the Shadow Viper, but when he noticed its severed tail, it became clear. The shell was the hardest part. The monster charged at him, ramming him into the wall, but Ray braced himself and stopped its attack with sheer strength. Taking a deep breath, he shifted his weight and flipped the massive creature over, using a technique similar to a judo athlete's throw. The monster crashed onto its back, slamming into the door. It groaned in pain as Ray stood over it, gripping his knife, now glowing with magic. Without hesitation, he struck the final blow. Ray stood over the monster's severed head, then turned to Norn and asked if he had done well. Instead of answering directly, Norn simply told him to make some friends once he got outside. Ray was caught off guard and asked why she had brought that up so suddenly. Norn pointed out how reckless he was and said that because of that, he needed trustworthy friends. Ray didn't understand. He wasn't even sure about making friends. But Norn was confident he could do it. He couldn't believe how casually she said it. She reminded him that people couldn't live alone and that he had a long life ahead of him. She wanted him to have friends so that if she was ever gone, he would have someone to laugh with. Flustered, Ray asked her not to say such things. Norn stayed silent, simply watching him. In that moment, Ray realized what she was trying to tell him. He finally understood. With a determined nod, he promised to do his best. Norn smiled and called him a good boy. Ray couldn't help but smile back, though he complained about being treated like a child again. Norn just laughed and said that to her he was still a kid. Then, with excitement, she told him they should keep going. Ray watched her for a moment, still smiling. If he did make some friends, he wanted to introduce them to her. He also wanted her to meet Nain. No matter what, he swore he would return to the labyrinth once he was done with his business outside. The two continued their journey, traveling through towering cliffs and mining areas. Eventually, they reached a forest. At one point, Norn stepped on a weak tree branch, which snapped beneath her. She lost her balance and fell, landing right on Ray's face. Embarrassed and annoyed, she immediately chased after him as if it were his fault. Despite the mishap, they both laughed and enjoyed each other's company as they camped and moved forward. The time had finally come. Ray and Norn reached the exit of the labyrinth. Ray could see that their journey together was about to end. Norn, having guided him this far, said her job was done. Though she was immortal, she still wished for Ray to be careful in the world outside. Ray hesitated for a moment. Noticing this, Norn asked what was wrong. He then asked if she truly couldn't come with him. Norn sighed and explained that he must have already realized the truth. After all, he was a white mage. Her body wasn't real. It had been created from the dungeon's aura, a vessel of pure magic. In reality, she had died long ago. If she left the labyrinth, her body would vanish. That was why they had to part ways. Ray felt guilty for making her say it out loud. He apologized, but Norn scolded him for looking so sad, saying it felt like he was making her the bad guy. He apologized again and she reassured him. As long as he understood, that was enough for her. Then, with some hesitation, she asked if he could visit her from time to time. Otherwise, she would feel lonely. Ray was surprised by her sudden honesty. Smiling, he promised not to let her feel lonely. After all, he had grown to love the labyrinth like a home. He vowed to return. Norn made him swear, and Ray promised again. He even mentioned that if he made friends in the outside world, he would bring them to meet her. Norn playfully said she wouldn't mind if one of them was a girlfriend. More than anything, she wanted him to enjoy life outside and not just focus on his goals. Ray assured her he would, then turned to leave. As he stepped forward, Norn reminded him to be careful. He waved goodbye and walked out of the labyrinth, the place where he had been trapped for 3 years at the bottom level and spent another 2 years reaching the exit. Now, standing at the edge of the outside world, he couldn't help but wonder, had the world changed while he was gone? The thought made him anxious, but at the same time, excitement filled his heart. Ray finally stepped into the outside world and took in the scenery. Tears ran down his face as he saw the real sky for the first time. His body trembled with excitement. When he turned around, he noticed that the exit had vanished. He quickly realized he would have to return through the original entrance. Grateful to Norn, he took a deep breath, slapped his cheeks to focus, and decided to find a village or town where he could trade his belongings for money. He also needed a new set of clothes. Suddenly, a strange smell filled the air. At first, he wondered if it was coming from him, but it wasn't. The scent was familiar. He recognized it as the smell of blood, both human and monster. Not far away, a holy knight stood frozen as he watched his partner's body split in half, blood gushing like a fountain. The upper half of the body lay motionless on the ground. In front of him stood a towering humanoid monster. Beside the monster, wolf-like creatures covered in dark, murky shadows waited, their presence adding to the knight's growing fear. The creature spoke, saying it had received orders from its superiors to devour as many humans as possible. Some time ago, a powerful figure stood before an army of monsters and ordered them to destroy the capital. This person believed that weak creatures were useless and that demons were the strongest. Following their command, the monsters prepared for an invasion. Raid after raid, they attacked travelers and merchants, stealing supplies. They killed and ate humans repeatedly, yet it was never enough. They still lacked the resources needed to take down the capital. To prove their superiority, the demons had to keep killing and consuming more humans. Among them, a lizard man particularly enjoyed the violence and destruction. This time, he targeted a carriage carrying holy knights. His wolf followers devoured the horses while he struck down one of the knights. The remaining knight, trembling in fear, finally recognized the lizard man standing before him. The single brown horn and massive war axe made it clear. This was Vegan, the B-ranked human hunter. Vegan felt pleased by his growing reputation. As he had expected, the knight's equipment was of high quality, filled with strong magic. He flipped the carriage over, causing a girl inside to scream. His eyes then landed on a chained woman. She was valuable in many ways. However, he hadn't expected the carriage to carry only 3 people, 2 holy knights and a single slave. Given how frequently he had been attacking, he had assumed there would be more guards. The holy knight took off running. He had no other choice. Vegan was strong enough to cut a person down with a single swing. As the knight fled, Vegan remembered that holy knights were an official unit recognized by their king. The knight's goal was clear. He needed to inform his superiors. Vegan scoffed at the idea of an elite warrior showing his back to an enemy. Without hesitation, he threw his axe. It struck the fleeing knight, killing him instantly. Disappointed, Vegan wondered if these so-called holy knights were nothing more than decorations. He turned to the woman nearby and asked if she thought the same. She trembled as he stepped toward her. He muttered that humans didn't taste good, so the demon wolves could have the knights' bodies. But the woman, she was different. To him, she looked delicious. Her face and eyes were particularly pleasing to him. He decided to keep her as a pet for a while before eating her. Her terrified expression excited him. He liked the idea of her living with the fear of knowing her fate. With a grin, he recalled how many women had begged for their lives, promising to do anything if he spared them. Humans fascinated him. They were willing to betray everything just to survive. Behind him, the wolves feasted on the fallen knights. Watching them, Vegan admitted he loved seeing the moment when humans realized they had been betrayed, when hope turned to despair. He could never get enough of it. The woman sobbed and pleaded for her life. Vegan only laughed. He promised to take care of her until the day her cries of "please spare me" turned into "please kill me." Just then, Ray stepped out of the nearby bushes and greeted them. Both Vegan and the girl were confused. Ray apologized for disturbing them and said he was lost. He asked if the girl could help him find a nearby village. Vegan simply replied that she couldn't. Ray chuckled, as if he had already expected that answer. Vegan wondered when this man had even gotten close to them. Despite Ray's worn-out clothes, Vegan's sharp senses noticed something alarming. Ray was covered in monster blood, and not just a little, but an unbelievable amount. Vegan couldn't help but wonder who this man really was. The girl suddenly told Ray to run away, warning that he would be killed too. Ray then asked if she didn't want to escape as well. She insisted that Vegan was after her and urged him to leave quickly. At that moment, Ray seemed to finally understand what was going on. Vegan glared at Ray, who had an aloof expression. He didn't know why Ray was covered in different monster blood, but he couldn't let any witnesses live. An idea came to him. He would let Ray run, then strike him from behind. After that, he would cut off Ray's legs without killing him. Once Ray was helpless, he would force the girl to watch as he cut up what was left of him. He imagined the look on her face when the person she tried to save was killed in front of her. The thought excited him. Vegan agreed to let Ray escape, but the girl would stay. He wanted to see what Ray would choose. Would he run away alone or try to save her? He hoped to see a look of pain on Ray's face, but instead, Ray simply walked away. Vegan was confused. Was Ray really going to abandon her just like that? Still, it didn't matter. If he couldn't enjoy Ray's suffering, then he would enjoy the girl's. He threw his war axe at Ray and the girl shouted a warning, but Vegan claimed it was too late. Ray's limbs were severed and the girl's face twisted in despair. This was exactly what Vegan wanted. The girl screamed as Ray's body parts scattered. She called Vegan cruel for what he had done. Seeing her in despair made Vegan excited. This was the reaction he wanted, and he couldn't get enough of it. He walked toward Ray and tried to pick up his body, wondering what kind of expression Ray had in his final moments. At that moment, Vegan's head was suddenly cut off. He saw the world upside down and questioned if his head had really been severed. But a second later, his head reattached to his body. He was confused. There was no pain at all. Ray calmly explained that it was because he had cut his neck so cleanly. Shocked, Vegan asked why Ray's legs were still intact. He was sure he had cut them off. He demanded to know what Ray had done to him. Ray casually explained that he had cut off Vegan's head and then reattached it using heal. Vegan was stunned. He had never heard of such powerful healing magic before, and if something like that existed, it wouldn't just be called a simple heal. Facing an unknown power beyond his understanding, he realized one thing. The man standing before him was dangerous. He had to escape or he would die. Ray asked what was wrong, but Vegan's instincts screamed that Ray was a threat. Yet his legs wouldn't move. He then remembered his superior's order, to devour all humans and prove that demons were the stronger race. However, another thought struck him. Even if he ran, the 4 deadly demons would kill him for failing. Determined, he chose to fight. Gripping his war axe, he charged at Ray, declaring himself the great human hunter who wouldn't be defeated by a mere child. With confidence, he swung his weapon. He was Vegan, the one who had destroyed 3 human villages and slain several holy knights from the capital. But in an instant, Ray overpowered him. With little effort, Ray slashed off his right arm. Then, in a calm voice, Ray asked if Vegan finally understood. He was weaker. Overwhelmed by fear, Vegan turned and ran with all his strength, his severed arm left behind. He had been wrong. Ray then declared that he would forgive Vegan this time, but there wouldn't be a second chance. Vegan had always believed he was the strong one, the hunter of the weak. But now, as Ray warned him never to appear before him again, Vegan realized the truth. He was the weak one. And this time, he was the prey. After the fight, Ray checked on the girl to see if she was okay. She introduced herself as Liana, a slave, and thanked him for saving her. However, she seemed more worried about Ray and looked at his legs. She couldn't believe they had really healed, especially after seeing them get cut off. Ray was surprised that Liana was concerned about him when she had been the one in danger. He told her that he was a white mage. Liana was shocked and asked if he had really just used heal on his severed legs and restored them instantly. She wondered why she had never heard of such a powerful white mage before. At that moment, Ray realized he had made a mistake. He had been healing like this every day for the past 5 years without thinking much about it. He knew his heal was far from normal. To avoid more questions, he quickly changed the subject and asked Liana what she planned to do next. Liana admitted she wasn't sure. As Ray looked at her, he saw himself in her. He remembered how weak he had been in the past, unable to do anything, with Nenemoa always there to support him. He couldn't just leave a 12-year-old girl alone with nowhere to go. If Nenemoa were with him, she would have helped without hesitation. Ray said he was also looking for a destination and planned to go to the capital. He reached out his hand to Liana and asked her to join him. He mentioned that there would be many things to see and good food to eat. Ray wanted to be like Nenemoa, someone who helped others in need. He felt that this could be his chance, starting with Liana. However, it would be a while before he could see Nenemoa again. Meanwhile, in a dark and eerie room, a hooded man opened a capsule. A girl with horns emerged, crawling weakly on the floor. She let out a single groan before dying. The hooded man stared in disbelief. Another failure. He still couldn't perfect the method, but it didn't bother him. He had plenty of materials left. Next in line for the experiment was Nenemoa. Ray asked Liana if she wanted to go with him to the royal capital, but she was too shocked to respond. Later, Ray prayed in front of the graves he had made for the fallen holy knights. Since it was getting dark, he decided they should travel as far as possible before nightfall. He also took a new set of clothes from the wrecked carriage, though he felt guilty for taking them without permission. However, he had no choice. He couldn't enter the royal capital wearing torn clothes. To make up for it, he left some minerals he had found in the dungeon as payment. Liana then called out to Ray in a formal tone. She apologized and said she couldn't go with him. When Ray asked why, she explained that she was afraid Vegan might come after them again if she stayed with him. Ray realized she was talking about the demon from earlier. He admitted that he hadn't caught Vegan, but he was sure he had scared him enough. He believed Vegan wouldn't dare attack them again. Ray then reassured Liana that if Vegan ever returned, he would simply kill him. Liana was startled by his words, and Ray quickly told her to forget what he said. Ray assured Liana not to worry because she was no longer a slave and could live a normal life. However, Liana doubted that since her temporary master had just died. She then revealed her slave mark, proof that she would always remain a slave. By channeling magic into the mark, a master could force their slave to obey any command. It was basically a magic curse. Ray couldn't believe he hadn't thought this through. As a slave with an unknown origin, Liana wouldn't be able to find a new master. No one would take in an unregistered slave since they could be punished for the slave's actions. Ray remembered that ownerless slaves usually face terrible fates, either becoming food for demons or beasts, being forced into prostitution, or even taking their own lives. However, Ray also remembered how Liana had warned him to run away. Even when her own life was in danger, she chose to protect him instead. The reason she refused to go with him might have been because she feared the dangers that would come with staying by his side. If Nenemoa had been with him, Ray was sure she wouldn't have backed down so easily. If she had the power to save people, she would have reached out without hesitation. Ray knew there was only one thing he could do for Liana. He suggested forming a contract with him. Liana was surprised but reminded him that her master had already died, meaning they couldn't go through the formal procedure. She also worried that Ray might get punished for it. But Ray told her not to worry. He understood the risks. Then he removed the magic on his hand, revealing his own slave mark. Liana was surprised to see a mark on Ray. He then explained that he hated seeing it, so he always covered it with medicine. Now, he needed to cover it again. Liana asked if he had already become a slave, but Ray told her that he had been abandoned, so there was nothing to worry about being with him. Liana tried to argue, but before she could say more, Ray noticed something. He quickly turned around and slashed a demon wolf. Looking closer, he realized it was the same kind of monster that Vegan had brought, and many more were still left behind. As the monsters charged toward them, Ray told Liana to stay behind him. The creatures attacked as a group. Ray focused his magic power into his leg and released it all at once by kicking the ground. Earth spikes shot up, throwing the monsters back. He followed up with a single slash, cutting off 3 heads at once. Then he warned the remaining monsters that they wouldn't get past him. Watching Ray fight, Liana realized he was no ordinary healer. As she looked around, she spotted a sword. Meanwhile, Ray was complaining about how many monsters there were. One tried to sneak up on him from behind. Just like he had done to Vegan, Ray planned to make them feel fear. However, before he could act, he heard Liana shouting, breaking his focus. Liana swiftly cut the monster, attacking Ray in half like butter. Ray stood in shock, unable to speak. As Liana saw the monster dead and caught her breath, relief washed over her. She had done it. Though her hands trembled, she offered to fight alongside Ray. Ray, confused, asked what she was trying to do. Liana reassured him, saying she had been trained to use a sword, even though this was her first real battle. Ray was surprised to learn that Liana had been trained. From what he knew, slaves were usually only used for chores and heavy labor. A lot must have changed in the past 5 years. However, there was a problem. Several monsters lunged at Liana, who was taken aback, but Ray quickly reacted, slicing them apart and protecting her in his arms. The sheer number of enemies was too much for Liana to handle. Ray then fixed his gaze on the remaining monsters and realized that the number was too much for Liana. Ray then released his intimidating aura. Dark, ghostly figures loomed behind him, causing the monsters to tremble in fear. Unable to withstand the pressure, the monsters all fled with tails between their legs. Ray let out a sigh of relief and told Liana that it was over. However, Liana didn't move. Instead, she blushed and leaned on Ray for support. It was only then that Ray realized he was holding her tight on his chest. Embarrassed, he quickly let go and apologized. Liana thanked him for saving her again. As Ray looked at her, he noticed something. Liana fought recklessly as if she didn't care about her own life. He could tell she thought she was a burden to him. Deciding to keep her close, Ray came up with an excuse. He claimed he had lost his memories of the past several years. Of course, it was a lie. It would have been too much trouble to explain that he had been trapped in a dungeon for 5 years, and those things would just confuse Liana. Pretending to be clueless about recent events, Ray asked Liana to teach him everything she knew. More specifically, he wanted information about Nenemoa. To learn that, he needed to understand what had happened over the past 5 years. In exchange for her help, he promised to protect her and even pay her. Liana hesitated and asked why he would go that far. Ray simply replied that he needed her, nothing more, nothing less. Liana was surprised to hear that she was needed. She thought about it for a moment. She admitted that she would have died without Ray's help, and if he was fine with that understanding, she would go with him. Ray felt relieved and thanked her. Embarrassed, Liana said that she should have been the one to say those words. She then held out her hand showing the slave mark, and Ray proceeded with the contract. Once it was completed, Liana started addressing Ray formally. However, Ray quickly refused to be treated that way. Ray didn't form the contract to become Liana's master. He had two reasons for doing it. First, it allowed them to know each other's location at all times. If Liana was ever in danger, Ray could immediately find her. Second, they could share and control magic power together. Ray could strengthen Liana's body with his aura, making it easier for him to protect her. Liana asked Ray to call her name casually. Ray requested the same, but Liana still insisted on speaking formally. Feeling awkward, Ray urged her to relax and speak normally. As the sun began to set, they decided to stop and set up camp. Liana said she could keep walking, but Ray didn't want her to push herself too hard. However, they were still in a forest where monsters roamed. Liana apologized for making him camp there, but Ray didn't mind since he was also tired. He set up a tent from the carriage and told Liana to rest inside. She didn't argue, and Ray felt relieved. As Ray lit the fire, he was still shocked that slaves were now being trained to fight in battles, do chores, and even guard stores. However, something even more surprising caught his attention: their location. Earlier, Liana had told him that they were in Serval territory, south of the royal capital. She estimated that it would take them 2 days to reach the capital, which stood in the middle of the continent. Ray was too stunned to respond. When he was with Gunkinodongwa, they had entered the dungeon from the northern entrance in Lugardian territory. In other words, Ray had exited the dungeon on the complete opposite side, far across from the royal capital. This made him realize that the labyrinth was much larger than he had imagined. Back in the present, Liana shared her amazement at Ray's strength. She recalled watching high-ranking holy knights train in the royal capital as part of her own training. She had been instructed to learn by observing. While the knights were impressive, she felt they were far weaker than Ray. Their movements were nothing like his. In her opinion, even the strongest holy knights wouldn't be able to keep up with him. She had felt that way ever since she watched him fight on their journey. Liana called Ray amazing, and her words warmed his heart. As her bodyguard, he was happy to hear her praise. She quickly apologized, feeling it was bold of her to say such things, but Ray didn't mind at all. Suddenly, they heard a loud screech coming from the woods. Both of them became alert, wondering if it was a monster. Ray told Liana to stay at the camp. He believed the creature was stronger than the one he had fought earlier. After telling her to wait, he sprinted toward the woods. Meanwhile, Loki announced that they had finally arrived. The place was an A-ranked dungeon called the Dream Door of Death. He asked if everyone was ready, and they all confirmed. He reminded them that Gunkinodongwa had now reached S-rank, and with Kanata, their new white mage, they had nothing to fear. Then, he turned toward the dungeon and gave the order to begin the conquest. A few months ago, Loki entered Valand Castle in the royal capital and looked at the paintings on the walls. He remembered visiting the castle 5 or 6 years earlier when his party, Gunkinodongwa, had been promoted to A rank. Only a few people were allowed inside the castle, and most of them had to be royalty or had earned special awards. Every time Loki visited the castle, it reminded him of the past. Years ago, the king had talked about how gods were once human. He said they couldn't let demons do whatever they wanted, as it would ruin the way of life the gods created. The king ordered the hero to kill the demon lord. Since they were gods, it was the right thing to do. Loki had watched from the sidelines as the king sent the hero to defeat the demon lord. That was in the past. Now, in the present, Loki and others were kneeling before the king. The king already knew about Loki and Gunkinodongwa's success in conquering A-ranked dungeons and their help in improving the kingdom. Because of these achievements, the king rewarded Gunkinodongwa with a certificate that officially made them recognized as an S-ranked party. Aside from Gunkinodongwa, 3 other parties were promoted. However, only Gunkinodongwa reached S-rank. The other party leaders stared at Loki. He could feel their envious gazes, and though he tried to hide it, he couldn't stop himself from feeling proud. After his silent giggle, Loki thanked the king and promised to keep working hard to help the kingdom in defeating the demon lord. The king acknowledged his words and looked forward to their future achievements before dismissing the audience. Everyone in the throne room was then dismissed. As Loki walked through the hallways, pride filled him. Reaching S-rank had been a long journey. His party had cleared 8 C-rank dungeons and completed 5 missions to reach B rank. Then they conquered 4 B-rank dungeons and finished 5 more missions to advance to A rank. Finally, after defeating 2 A-rank dungeons and completing 3 missions, they had earned their S-rank status. Now that he was an S-rank adventurer, the guild's rewards would increase significantly. On top of that, the kingdom would provide financial support. At last, he could say goodbye to his money troubles. Loki stopped walking when someone noticed him. An old man called out to him saying it was amazing that he had become an S-ranked adventurer at just 20 years old. Loki thanked the old man for his kind words. The secretary agreed, saying Loki was indeed impressive. After all, many adventurers struggled to clear A-ranked dungeons. Loki flinched. This was the feeling he had always wanted. S-ranked adventurers were respected and praised by everyone. This was what made adventuring fun for him. His desire for approval was finally being fulfilled. Keeping a calm expression, Loki said it was all thanks to his talented party members. He claimed he was simply lucky to have such skilled teammates and that he owed his success to them. But deep down, he thought they were useless without his leadership. In his mind, they should be the ones thanking him instead. Realizing how strong Gunkin Odongwa was, the old man commented that they might soon fight alongside the hero, clearing S-ranked dungeons or even defeating the Demon Lord's generals. He patted Loki's shoulder and even suggested that Gunkin Odongwa alone could take down an undead terror. Loki felt disgusted and pushed the old man's hand away, saying he would do his best to defeat the monsters. Then he excused himself, using his teammates as an excuse. The old man apologized for holding him up and left as well. Loki found the old man annoying and couldn't believe he actually dreamed of defeating an undead terror. Loki didn't even want to run into one. These monsters were ranked A+ and came in 3 types: human type, beast type, and liquid type. Their bodies were covered in poison and they couldn't die unless their core was destroyed. Even 10 superior holy knights might struggle to defeat the weakest one, the human type. As for the liquid type, Gunkin Odongwa would be wiped out in 5 seconds. Their attack patterns were unpredictable, and their speed was unbelievably fast despite their appearance. Each type was as dangerous as a natural disaster. Even the hero himself couldn't defeat one alone. Loki left the castle and spotted his teammates. He remembered that the undead terror was a high-ranked monster found only in SSS-ranked dungeons like Yggdrasil. He was sure they wouldn't run into one in a million years. Gunkin Odongwa had been fighting a huge centipede monster inside the A-ranked dungeon, Dream Door of Death. Meanwhile, Loki called out to Himeno. The sword Saintess leaped above the monster, distracting it and pinning it to the ground. Suglin stepped forward and thanked Himeno before striking the monster with his greatsword, feeling proud of himself. However, Loki called him an idiot. Suddenly, something sharp shot out from the monster and injured Suglin's right shoulder. The monster tried to attack again, but a powerful magic blast struck it. The monster turned and glared at the attacker, File, who had fired the spell while protecting Kanata from the backlines. Loki praised File for the distraction and used his barrier magic to behead the monster. He then shrank the barrier around the severed head until it was crushed into pulp. After the centipede monster was defeated, Loki started scolding Suglinst, who was getting healed by Kanata. He complained that Suglinst shouldn't have just slashed at the monster randomly. He should have aimed for the head, just like Loki had explained before. Suglinst, annoyed by Loki's nagging, argued that it didn't matter since he had already defeated it. Seeing no point in arguing with someone who wouldn't listen, Loki gave up. Suglinst then turned his frustration toward Kanata, asking if she was finished yet. Kanata replied that she needed a little more time. Loki sighed, deciding to drop the issue. He announced that they would continue once Suglinst's arm was fully healed. He knew they had a long journey ahead, and wasting energy arguing with someone stubborn wasn't worth it. The A-ranked dungeon Dream of Door Death first appeared 3 years ago, when miners accidentally uncovered its entrance. 50 miners entered, hoping to find treasure and rare ores, but none of them ever returned. In response, Gunkin Odongwa was assigned to investigate and conquer the dungeon. Just then, Loki noticed File acting strangely. She started sweating as she spotted snowdrops. At first, Loki thought she was just talking about flowers, but File explained that snowdrops usually grew in snowy areas and only bloomed in places filled with strong magical energy. Hearing this, Loki suddenly realized something. Himeno then confirmed that a powerful monster was lurking inside the dungeon. She was certain of it. Her sword Saint's blessing was reacting strongly. She even questioned whether this dungeon was really just A-ranked. Suglinst then asked if she was suggesting that an even stronger monster was inside. Loki recalled that Himeno's sword Saint's blessing was an incredible skill. It could greatly boost a person's 5 senses, reflexes, and physical abilities for a limited time. More importantly, it also served as a warning when a foe stronger than the user was nearby. Kanata asked what they should do and said it would be dangerous if there really was a monster stronger than A-rank. Despite the concern, Loki decided to continue exploring. Worried, Suglinst asked if he was really sure. Loki found his question annoying and clicked his tongue. He reassured them that they would be fine since they had already defeated many dungeons and plenty of A-rank monsters. He also mentioned that this time they had Kanata, a skilled white mage. Kanata felt flattered but quickly pointed out that she was only ranked 20th among white mages, far below the top-ranked Rei. Hearing Rei's name, Loki was confused. He asked if Kanata was talking about their former teammate, the one they lost in Yggdrasil. Kanata confirmed that she meant Rei Din Huel, who used to be part of Gunkin Adongwa. Loki couldn't believe it. To him, Rei had always seemed like a useless weakling, and now he was supposed to be the #1 white mage? It sounded impossible. He didn't even know there were rankings for white mages in the first place. Kanata then admitted that she admired Rei's fighting style. Unlike others, he rarely used heal, yet he always kept his team alive. He had an incredible ability to read the battlefield instantly, analyze the enemy, and devise the best strategy. Loki scoffed, saying that everyone knew the real reason Rei barely used heal. Suglinst suddenly burst out laughing and added that Rei couldn't even cast heal properly, even if he wanted to. He had so little magic power that he couldn't even heal himself properly. Loki was glad there was someone foolish enough to say it out loud. The room fell silent. File's sharp glare made the others uneasy. Kanata, however, remained firm. She admitted she knew all of that, but she also knew something else. Rei always thought about how to protect his team without relying on magic power. He spent hours reading books and created his own unique fighting style. To her, he was an incredible white mage, the greatest of them all. Loki felt frustrated. Why was Kanata praising Rei so much? Kanata continued, saying that when it came to healing speed, no one could match Rei. His heal didn't just close wounds, it regenerated damaged tissues instantly. He could even reattach all 4 severed limbs in a blink. What Rei could do went far beyond normal healing. She explained that ordinary white mages could only speed up natural recovery, but they couldn't do anything beyond that. Hearing Kanata's words made Loki realize that from that moment on, no matter where they went, they wouldn't suffer fatal injuries. The only reason they had been promoted to S rank was pure luck. Without Rei, Gunkin Adongwa would have been the one to reach A rank. In fact, they would have died long ago. It wasn't just Loki who understood this, everyone else did too. Loki wasn't surprised that the others were speechless. They had already suspected that Rei's healing abilities weren't normal, and now everything was starting to make sense. He remembered the words of the white mages who had died along the way. One couldn't believe he was expected to act as bait while healing, saying it was impossible because healing magic required intense concentration. Another was shocked when his healing magic was called slow. He argued that healing a broken bone in an hour was actually fast. When the party asked for a second healing session, he thought it was ridiculous. Another white mage explained that the quality of healing magic depended on their understanding of human anatomy. If they didn't know exactly where the injury was or how to heal it properly, they could make it worse. A dying mage even mentioned that reattaching a torn arm was impossible. Now Loki understood that those white mages weren't bad at their jobs at all. He couldn't believe Rei had never told them about any of this. Himeno suddenly sensed something and warned everyone to hide. Loki quickly realized that a powerful monster was getting closer. Himeno then said it was the Dungeon Master. Loki was confused. Dungeon Masters were supposed to stay on the lowest floor, so why was it here? Himeno didn't know the reason, but her blessing was telling her to run. Based on the feeling she got, she believed the monster was S-ranked. Loki broke into a cold sweat. Suglinst asked what they should do after hearing that a monster as strong as those from Yggdrasil was coming. Loki took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. It had been 5 years since and they had grown much stronger. They weren't promoted to S-rank by luck alone. He believed they should fight since they were no longer weak. Everyone agreed, except for Feel. Just as they gained confidence, they froze. The monster appeared, dragging another monster's head behind it. It was a humanoid creature, an undead terror. To their shock, she even greeted them politely. Loki panicked. There was no way they could defeat a monster that even the hero and his party couldn't handle. Since they stayed silent, the undead terror asked if they didn't like talking. However, Loki noticed that she was a human-type monster. That gave him hope. If they defeated her, they could become even stronger, just like the hero's party. With that thought, they all attacked the undead terror together. Meanwhile, Rei moved through the forest. Suddenly he stopped. He could tell from the presence and smell alone. It was just as he feared. He had found one of the most troublesome monsters, a liquid-type undead terror. Rei then prepared to fight it. 3 years ago, File stood at the entrance of the SSS-ranked dungeon, Yggdrasil's Labyrinth. As she looked at it, she felt sad, thinking about Rei. Before they parted ways, Rei had given her a butterfly hair clip, saying it would look good on her. When File asked why he gave her the gift, Rei reminded her that it was her birthday. He also wanted to thank her. File didn't think she had done anything worth thanking, but Rei disagreed. He told her she had always saved him in battles and helped him with chores. He asked her to accept the gift. Even though she hesitated, she finally took the hair clip and promised to treasure it. But deep down, File believed Rei was wrong. She thought she was weak and could only do that much to help him. In her eyes, Rei was the real reason their party succeeded. He worked the hardest and supported everyone in ways no one else could. She had told Loki this many times, but he never took her seriously. Himeno doubted Rei's importance, saying he only gathered information and acted as bait. Loki believed it was natural for Rei to work the hardest since he was the weakest white mage. unable to use even a single healing spell. He claimed Ray lacked power and had to make up for it. Since Ray was part of their party, he had no choice but to put in extra effort. Otherwise, Loki said, he wouldn't be worth keeping around. At that moment, File realized that her words had no effect. No matter what she said, they wouldn't take her seriously. Understanding this, she stopped talking. Just then, someone mentioned that File had come back again. She panicked and noticed Norn sitting on a mound. Norn said she had seen File the other day and had been coming to the dungeon's entrance many times. She wondered if File was planning to conquer the dungeon. File asked who she was. Norn casually introduced herself as a girl who treated the dungeon like her garden. She then asked for File's name. When File tried to move, she suddenly froze, trapped by Norn's magic. Norn felt insulted, thinking File was ignoring her. She warned File that entering the dungeon with her current skills would mean certain death. To Norn's surprise, File broke free from the magic. Impressed, Norn quickly realized something after sensing File's magic power. She remembered File visiting the dungeon a few years ago. Assuming File already knew how dangerous it was, she asked why File kept coming back. File said she needed to come. Crying, she insisted that she had to find Ray. Norn assumed she was talking about the white-haired white mage. File froze in place. Norn then asked if she was Ray's friend. File tried to answer, but she couldn't find the right words. Through her tears, she believed that Ray wouldn't even consider her a friend anymore. However, Norn thought differently. She could see that File had been preparing to enter the dungeon, fully ready to risk her life. It was clear to her that File was willing to throw everything away just to find Ray. In Norn's eyes, that was proof enough that File was his friend. Even so, File insisted that giving up her life wouldn't bring Ray back. Norn was confused and told her not to assume that Ray was gone. She assured File that Ray was still alive. Shocked and unsure, File asked if that was really true. Norn confirmed it, saying Ray was actually doing well and had chosen to live inside the dungeon. She told File not to worry and advised her not to come anymore since powerful S-ranked monsters sometimes roamed the area. When she heard that Ray was alive, File broke down in tears. She dropped to her knees, sobbing in relief. Norn, seeing how much File cared for Ray, felt reassured. She was glad that Ray had someone who truly cared about him, and she was also happy to know that he had a place to return to. Once File calmed down, Norn agreed to leave a bag with supplies on floor 125 near the waterfall, so Ray could take it. She asked if File had a message for him. File simply said that the rucksack had originally belonged to Ray and doubted he would use anything she had prepared. Norn didn't fully understand her reasoning, but she agreed to do as she asked. File then thanked her. Norn remembered something and handed File a soulstone, a rare ore found only in Yggdrasil and worth a lot of money. Worried, File asked if it was really okay to accept such a valuable item. Norn then said there was a condition. File had to take care of Ray if he ever returned to the outside world. Without hesitation, File agreed. Norn thanked him and called him a cute ghost. This caught File off guard, but before he could say anything, Norn told him never to return to her dungeon again. That day, File learned that Ray was still alive. She felt a sense of relief, but it didn't change the fact that what she had done to Ray was unforgivable. She chose to carry that guilt forever. In the present, the human-like undead terror attacked Gunkinadongwa. File struggled because her magic power was weaker. Suglinst asked if she had any magic left. Forcing herself to speak, she claimed she could still use magic. However, the undead terror's attacks were too fast and she couldn't find a chance to fight back. Suddenly, the undead terror lashed out with her tentacles. Suglinst managed to block the attack, but File was hit hard and badly injured. As File collapsed to the ground, Suglinst cursed in frustration. Then he sensed something behind him. Turning around, he saw the undead terror glaring at him while flipping her body, revealing her thick thighs and curves. Without hesitation, she swung her tentacles and unleashed a powerful attack. Suglinst was sent flying and crashed to the floor, unconscious. The undead terror chuckled, letting out an ara ara, and mocked how weak adventurers were. Her attention then shifted to Loki, who was protecting Kanata. She smirked and declared they were next. Before she could attack, Himeno suddenly appeared behind her, attempting a sneak attack. But the undead terror was faster. Himeno froze in shock as she saw the creature transform one of her tentacles into a sharp blade. She barely had time to react before noticing her severed left hand lying on the ground. Blood gushed from the wound like a fountain. Himeno stared at it, confused, unable to process what had just happened. Then the pain hit her and she screamed in agony. The undead terror watched her suffering with delight. Loki trembled as he looked around. He insisted that things shouldn't have turned out this way. He saw File and Suglinst unconscious while Himeno cried in pain over her missing hand. Kanata warned him about what was in front of him. Loki quickly put up a barrier he was proud of, but the undead terror's sharp tentacles pierced through it with ease. The attack didn't stop there. It sliced off Loki's arm and even took his left leg. He screamed in agony while Kanata stood and watched. Desperate, Loki shouted at Kanata, demanding to know what she was doing. He ordered her to hurry up and heal him, calling her a slowpoke in frustration. The undead terror stopped in front of Loki. Panicked, he begged it to wait and asked if they could communicate. He apologized and pleaded for mercy, but the creature didn't listen. Its sharp tentacles wiggled toward him, ready to strike. Terrified, Loki shouted that he couldn't die yet and begged to be spared. He even told the undead terror to go after the others instead. Both Kanata and Himeno were shocked by his words. The undead terror sighed and called Loki's screams filthy, saying she couldn't stand listening to them. In a final act of desperation, Loki grabbed Kanata, pulling her in front of him as a shield against the deadly attack. Feel shouted a powerful fire magic attack called Giga Flame. The undead terror was hit, saving Kanata from death. Kanata was surprised to see that Feel had gotten back up. Feel then told Kanata to use the chance to heal the others while she distracted the undead terror. Loki noticed Feel standing, but he himself collapsed, unconscious. The undead terror shifted her attention to Feel. She remarked that Feel's scream would probably sound beautiful. Feel knew she had to at least help Kanata escape. She realized this was her punishment for abandoning her friend. The undead terror then sent all her tentacles forward, piercing Feel's body. As pain filled her, Feel wondered if Ray would be happy seeing his backstabbing teammates dying. Her staff slipped from her hands and fell to the ground. She hoped Ray would, but the thought trailed off. More than anything, she feared dying. That day, she couldn't stop herself from abandoning Ray. There were so many people who hated witches with demon's blood like her. They wouldn't hesitate to leave someone like her behind. She hadn't been able to say anything back then, afraid everyone would cast her aside instead. Her fear of death had been stronger than her desire to save Ray. It had made her selfish. Now she accepted this as her punishment. As her butterfly hair clip fell to the ground, she imagined Ray's smiling face one last time. Soon after, Loki opened his eyes and asked where he was. He recalled fighting the undead terror. He also noticed and could feel his right arm and left leg gone. A woman appeared and looked happy to see him awake. Loki asked how she was. She introduced herself as the head of the medical clinic. Noticing Loki's reaction, she assumed the painkillers and magic were working well. Realizing she was in charge, Loki demanded that she heal his arm and leg. Since she was the head of the clinic, he believed she could do it. He even offered to pay any amount because he couldn't afford to stay like this. However, the woman told him she couldn't heal his limbs, but she knew someone who could. Loki's face lit up with hope, but then she revealed that the only person capable of doing it was Ray, the very person Loki had killed. Loki froze in shock, struggling to find his words. He asked again if Ray was the only one who could help. Then in denial, he insisted that he hadn't killed Ray. He reminded her that he was the leader of Gunkin Odongwa, recognized by the king. He declared that killing a comrade was a serious crime. The head of the medical clinic brought up 5 people. Over the past 5 years, several white mages in Loki's party had died, which seemed strange. She pointed out that white mages had the lowest risk of dying, yet many from Loki's group had lost their lives. However, after reading Kanata's report, everything made sense. She had heard that Loki used Kanata as a shield when he was about to be killed. Kanata, flustered, tried to explain. The medical head also heard that Loki had sold his friends to monsters. Loki tried to defend himself, but she cut him off, saying she was already angry that her dear friends had died because of him. She made it clear that he wouldn't escape the consequences. Loki couldn't even respond. The medical head sighs and tells Loki that his career as an adventurer is over. When Loki asks what she means, she mentions his comrades. Loki is confused and unsure of what has happened to them. She then revealed the grim truth. Suglinst was in a coma. Himeno had lost her sight along with her left arm and leg. File had gone missing and they assumed she was dead. The group Loki had once been so proud of was completely destroyed. Loki's face froze in shock. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. All he could manage was a confused, weak, "Eh?" In the forest where Ray had been, trees lay shattered as tentacles whipped through the air. But in the midst of the chaos, a sharp slash cut through them. Somehow, with just a single knife, Ray was overpowering the liquid-type undead terror. Suddenly, eerie voices came from the creature asking Ray to play with it. He narrowed his eyes, noticing how the severed tentacles instantly regenerated as if nothing had happened. No matter how much he cut, the creature kept restoring itself, showing no signs of running out of magic power. This made Ray wonder just how many humans the undead terror had consumed to reach such a state. The monster attacked again, destroying everything in its path. Ray dodged swiftly, slicing the tentacles apart like sashimi, but as he fought, he questioned why such a powerful monster was roaming the forest. While avoiding another strike, he remembered that the undead terror was known as the Reciter of the Dead, a high-tier monster typically found near the Demon Lord's castle. It wasn't a creature he should have encountered here. Then he recalled how the monster had been releasing an unnecessary amount of magic power, as if trying to draw attention. Was it luring him in, testing him, or worse, was someone using it to test him? If that was the case, the one behind it had to be powerful enough to control an undead terror, possibly a high-ranking demon or something just as dangerous. Ray assumed that whoever it was had been watching him from somewhere nearby. The undead terror attacked again, but Ray effortlessly avoided each strike. He realized he couldn't afford to drag out the fight. He had no way of tracking the observer, and besides, Liana was waiting for him. However, the creature in front of him was an S-ranked monster. He couldn't reveal too much about his abilities, but he needed to end the battle quickly. With that in mind, Ray decided to get serious. A terrifying aura erupted from him as he prepared to finish the fight. After a few seconds of standing still, Ray vanished and reappeared above the undead terror. The monster tried to defend itself by striking with its deadly tentacles, but Ray quickly sliced through them as they reached for him. He dodged a larger one, which ended up smashing into a tree instead. Seeing an opening, Ray aimed for the monster's body and struck with great force, splitting it apart. As he looked inside, he spotted its weak point, the core. Before he could attack, the monster fought back, forcing Ray to retreat. But now that he knew where to strike, he was ready to end the battle. Ray channeled his magic into his knife, transforming it into a weapon that resembled a lance. This technique was called Aura Lance Ray. As the monster launched all its tentacles at him in one last attempt to fight back, Ray spun his body to build momentum and unleashed his Aura Lance Ray. The powerful attack completely destroyed the monster, leaving nothing behind. After the fight, Ray picked up the cracked core of the undead terror. He thought about using it to make a weapon, but he could also sell it for a high price. For now, he decided to keep it. Just then, he noticed Liana watching from the bushes. She was shocked that Ray had defeated the undead terror so easily and quickly. She started calling him amazing because he had destroyed the core in a single strike. On top of that, he had dodged the monster's fast tentacle attacks. Ray simply said he had fought undead terrors before. These monsters also appeared in the middle floors of Yggdrasil Labyrinth. He admitted they were strong, but the ones in the lower floors were even stronger. Since the danger had passed, Ray suggested resting for the night and leaving early in the morning. Liana agreed and headed back to the camp first. As Ray looked around, he felt like something was off. Liana asked what was wrong, but he just said it was nothing and turned his attention back to the monster's core. Changing the subject, he asked Liana if she liked sweet food, and if she wanted to eat some together once they reached the royal capital. Liana said she did. Ray then decided to sell the monster's core and treat themselves to some desserts. He admitted that he also liked sweet food and even knew a good place in the capital. Hearing this, Liana shyly agreed to go. Ray was happy with her answer and told her to look forward to it. As the sun set the next day, Ray decided to stop and set up camp. But before he could, Liana called out to him loudly. Ray wondered if she had spotted monsters, but instead, she excitedly announced that she had found a village nearby. They soon arrived at the village, which was surrounded by high walls. It was clear that it was indeed a village. Overcome with relief, Liana's legs gave out and she sank to the ground. Ray asked if she was okay, and she explained that she had just lost her strength for a moment. Ray understood. After all, they had been walking non-stop since morning. On top of that, they had gotten lost, which made their journey even longer. Looking up at the towering walls, Liana hesitated and commented that it seemed more like a fortress than a village. Ray explained that the walls were likely built using stones infused with divine power to protect the villagers. In the past, monster attacks had caused many casualties, so people started building walls around villages and towns for safety. They stopped in front of the gate, the only way in or out. Feeling responsible, Liana stepped forward, ready to ask the people inside for permission to enter. But before she could get too close, Ray quickly stopped her. Confused, Liana asked what was wrong. Ray explained that just like the walls, the gate was also made with divine power. It was designed to reject anyone with magic powers, just like it did with monsters and demons. To prove his point, Ray pressed his palm against the gate. Immediately, a burning sensation spread across his hand, showing that the divine power also affected humans with magic abilities. Liana froze as she realized her mistake and quickly apologized. She knew the gate would reject monsters and demons, but hadn't expected it to have the same effect on humans. Ray reassured her, saying it made sense that she wouldn't know since this was her first time seeing a divine gate. Ray shifted his gaze to the divine gate, which suddenly displayed a projection of a huge eye. The divine gate's eye was analyzing them. Ray explained that it was a spell used to check for any presence beyond the gate. Moments later, the gate opened and Ray assumed they were being welcomed inside. Before they could step forward, someone appeared in front of them, pointing a spear at them. Liana panicked, but Ray remained calm and simply glared at the guard. The guard stared at them for a while, but quickly lowered his spear after realizing they were humans. He then closed the divine gate and explained that he had sensed a strong magic reaction, making him think they were demons disguised as travelers. The guard introduced himself as Atra, a diamond-ranked holy knight and the divine tree keeper of the village's divine gate. Ray was surprised that someone so young held such an important role. Atra laughed and said he just got lucky since he was still inexperienced. However, Ray wasn't so sure. He knew that only those skilled in controlling divine power could activate the powerful divine gate. Based on Atra's movements earlier, Ray could tell that he was strong despite his age. Atra apologized for the rough welcome. He wanted to treat them to a meal, but since all the restaurants were closed, he could only offer some water. However, he recommended a good inn where they could get a discount. Ray thanked him and then introduced himself and Liana. He apologized for arriving so late and explained that they had gotten lost in the forest. Atra was shocked to hear that and called them lucky for surviving. Ray just laughed it off. Atra decided to share some important news. He revealed that the village had been in danger for several months because a wicked demon had been targeting them. He then asked Ray if he had ever heard of a werewolf, a demon that was both human and wolf. Atra explained that the villagers had been attacked by werewolves for months. Ray said they hadn't encountered one on their way to the village. Atra believed him since they were still alive. Ray then asked if the werewolf was strong. Atra confirmed that they were ranked C, and if the country had known about them, they would have sent a unit of holy knights. Ray wondered if even the holy knights couldn't defeat the werewolves. Atra was surprised by how quickly Ray caught on and admitted that 4 diamond-ranked holy knights had been sent, but all of them had been killed. Ray was shocked to hear this. Atra then revealed something even more terrifying. There weren't just 1 or 2 werewolves, there were 3. Because of this, the village had been completely cut off. No one could leave to ask for help, and they were running out of food. The 4 holy knights who were sent never returned, and while Atra expected more to be dispatched, he wasn't sure when, or if, that would happen. Liana looked at Ray with concern, but Atra had even more grim news. He didn't want to believe it, but people had been disappearing from the village one after another. It started at the same time the werewolves appeared. At first he assumed it was their doing, but there were no traces of struggle, no footprints, no signs of an attack, and no one had ever heard a scream. The village chief and the others believed it wasn't related to the werewolves, but Ray could tell Atra thought otherwise. Atra then suggested that someone in the village might be a spy, secretly working with the werewolves. Meanwhile, outside the village, 3 werewolves were resting in the nearby woods. They wondered if the white-haired man who had just arrived was really the one who had defeated Vegan. They turned to a hooded man named Alfurk, one of the 4 deadly demons. Alfurk simply smiled creepily. Ray thought about the 2 incidents, the werewolves and the missing villagers. Atra apologized for sharing too much information as soon as they arrived. Just then, 2 siblings, Shu and Liz, showed up and called out to Atra. They had brought him dinner and he thanked them. Ray asked if they were his children, but Atra explained that they were the innkeeper's kids. The lively siblings introduced themselves and then asked for Ray's and Liana's names. Ray and Liana greeted them in return. Atra explained that he had to stay at his post, which was why the kids were the ones bringing his meals. Ray praised them for being responsible, and they smiled brightly. Atra then asked Shu and Liz to guide Ray and Liana to their inn, saying their mother would be happy to have guests after a long time. The kids asked if that was true, and Atra assured them it was. Excited, the children took Liana's hands and eagerly offered to lead the way. Ray smiled at Liana. Atra then reminded Ray about the inn he had planned to recommend, saying it was the same one the kids' mother managed. He mentioned that it was affordable and had a large bath. Ray saw no reason to refuse and decided to stay there for the night. As night fell over the village, Ray, Liana, and the kids finally arrived at the inn. Shu and Liz called for their mother, telling her they had customers. Their mother, Shinoka, was startled and rushed out of the kitchen. She greeted the visitors and introduced herself. Ray apologized for arriving so late, but Shinoka didn't mind. With fewer customers coming by lately, she was grateful for their visit. However, she was surprised that they had made it to the village safely, given the dangers outside the walls. Ray guessed she was talking about werewolves, and mentioned that they hadn't seen any on their way. Shinoka was amazed by their luck. She explained that when the village men went out to find help, none of them ever returned. The werewolves, she said, were demons with an incredible sense of smell. She told them they were lucky to have gotten past them unharmed. Ray wondered if that was true. From what he had heard so far, he realized that the werewolves had surrounded the village. If they really had a strong sense of smell, they would have attacked already. Besides, Ray himself had a sharp sense of smell, but he hadn't noticed any demon scent on the way to the village. He wondered if the werewolves had just been away for a while. Shinoka apologized for delaying them and offered to take them to their room. As she was about to lead them to the 2nd floor, Ray stopped her and asked for one more thing. He wanted details about the recent events and the number of casualties in the village over the past few months. He needed more information. Later in their room, Liana summarized everything they had learned from Shinoka. The werewolves first appeared near the village about 3 months ago. The first victim was a woman who went hunting outside the village but never returned. The next day, her head was found in front of the divine gate, half-eaten like an apple. Everyone believed that the rest of her body had been devoured. After that, the village men formed a group to hunt the werewolves, but they were all killed. A few days later, Atra mentioned that holy knights were sent to defeat the werewolves, but they were also wiped out. Another group of men left the village to seek help, but they never returned either. At the same time, people in the village started disappearing without a trace. So far, 28 villagers had vanished, and all of them were men. Liana found it hard to believe since the Divine Gate was supposed to protect the village. There was no sign that the werewolves had entered, yet people kept disappearing. Ray then explained that this was why Atra suspected there was a spy in the village. Since both events started at the same time, Ray doubted they were unrelated. When Liana asked if Ray also believed in the spy, Ray could only guess that it was either a werewolf in disguise or a demon. Shinoka knocked on the door and walked in. She told them that dinner was ready. A simple meal was served, and Ray and Liana glanced at each other. Ray mentioned that they had heard about the village's food shortage and asked Shinoka if it was really okay to serve them so much. Shinoka admitted that the village was indeed struggling with food, but Ray and Liana were their first customers in months. She assured them not to worry and to eat as much as they wanted. Ray apologized and thanked her, and Liana did the same. As they were about to eat, Ray noticed Liz and Shu staring at them, their mouths watering. Their stomachs growled, and they quickly apologized. Ray asked if they had eaten yet. The two nodded and said they had only eaten a piece of bread. Ray was surprised, and they explained that they weren't allowed to eat much. Ray then invited them over and offered them his share of the food. Liz and Shu hesitated, asking if he was sure. Ray assured them that he wasn't very hungry, but in return, he wanted them to promise something. They asked what it was. Ray told them to share the food equally between them. Their faces lit up, and they eagerly agreed. Shinoka walked over, ready to scold her kids for bothering the customers, but she stopped when she saw them eating Ray's food. Ray quickly explained that he had given them his share. Shinoka offered to deduct the meal from their payment, but Ray insisted on paying the full amount. Worried, Shinoka asked if he was really okay with that. Ray reassured her, and she apologized before thanking him. Just then, Ray suddenly remembered something. He remembered that Atra, the divine treekeeper, was close to Shinoka's children. Shinoka had shared that Atra often played with them and had grown attached. She was grateful to him. Ray mentioned that Atra would be thankful as well since the children had been bringing him food. Liana smiled when she saw Liz's cheerful expression. Shinoka then revealed that Atra once had a family who lived in another town, but they were all killed by demons. She had heard that Atra's children were around the same age as Liz and Shu. Ray suddenly realized that Atra had also lost loved ones. Shinoka explained that Atra had known about the danger approaching his family's home. However, he believed the Divine Gate would not remain active if he left, so he chose to stay in the village to protect the people. Shinoka said that everyone was grateful to him. Ray finally understood why Atra was so close to Liz and Shu. Even after losing his family, he continued to fight. Now, as the Divine Treekeeper, he was protecting the village. Ray couldn't imagine the heavy burden Atra carried. After the meal, Ray planned to take a bath and get ready for bed. He had wanted a separate room, but Liana refused, so they ended up sharing the same one. Ray knew it might be a problem since he was a man, so he mentioned it to her. In the end, he chose to sleep on the floor while letting Liana have the bed. A moment later, Liana entered the room looking down for some reason. Ray asked if something was wrong or if she had an upset stomach. Liana said the food was delicious, but it seemed like something else was on her mind. She remembered how Ray shared his food with the kids and said that it should have been hers that was given away. However, she had eaten her full meal. Ray assured her it was fine. He knew how hungry she was and didn't want her to collapse from starvation. Liana kept apologizing. Ray told her not to apologize. He explained that he just didn't feel hungry because his body was used to it. He also reminded her that he had been a slave as a child. Back then, he was never given food and was always starving. However, there was one person who always helped him. Nenemoa, who was also a slave, would share her food with him. She always said that boys needed to eat a lot so they could grow. Even when she was hungry herself, she still gave him her food. Now, Ray wanted to do the same. This made Liana realize that Ray was truly a good person, but Ray wasn't sure if he was. Liana then told him that the kindness he had shown to the children was something they would never forget. To her, his actions were truly wonderful. Ray looked at Liana and realized she cared too much about what others thought of her. She always paid close attention but rarely spoke without thinking, as if she was afraid of something. When she did speak, she only said good things about others. It didn't seem right for someone so young to act that way. At that moment, Ray fully understood. Liana had been raised as a slave. It was just his assumption, but he believed she had been treated as a luxury slave. She must have gone through many hardships on her own. He could tell she carried a deep wound, one she hid to protect herself from more pain. Ray saw his past self in her. She still had the slave mark, but she had no real restraints anymore. She was just a 12-year-old girl. He wanted her to live freely. He wanted to break the invisible chains holding her back. In a serious tone, Ray told Liana that even though they had made a contract, he was not her master. Liana, stumbling over her words, simply agreed. Ray reassured her not to be afraid and gently patted her head. He hoped that one day she would find her own path. Not as a slave, but as someone who lived for herself. Until then, he decided to protect her. Later, Ray went to take a bath and found it quite relaxing. He noted that the place would have been crowded if not for the werewolf incident. As he enjoyed the warm water, Liana suddenly entered, covering her front with a towel. Seeing her like that, Ray turned red with shock. Ray stuttered as he asked Liana why she was in the bath. He told her that she should have at least informed him if she wanted to go in first. Liana looked down while Ray stood up. Then he suddenly realized he was completely exposed and quickly went back into the water. He wondered why this situation was even happening. Liana then explained that she came because she wanted to help him wash his body. Ray immediately told her there was no need and reminded her that he wasn't her master. She didn't have to do this. However, Liana was worried. Ray had been helping her so much, but she hadn't done anything for him in return. She asked him to at least let her do what she could. Ray froze for a moment because he understood Liana's feelings all too well. In the past, he had also worried about not being needed by others. That fear had pushed him to do everything he could to make himself useful. Understanding her feelings, he decided to ease her worries and accept her help for now. He then asked her to wash his back, and Liana was relieved. Excited, Liana ran toward him, promising to clean him properly. Leaning closer, she eagerly said she was good at cleaning. Then she called him over, but Ray hesitated and asked if he could get a towel first. While Liana washed Ray's back, she asked if it hurt. Ray said it felt just right, which made Liana happy. Ray noticed her cheerful expression and felt glad as well. Suddenly, Liana asked him a question. She wanted to know if he could defeat the werewolves. Ray replied that it should be easier than fighting the undead terror from the other day. However, handling all three at once would be troublesome. He explained that werewolves were fast demons. In terms of speed, they were quicker than the undead terror, even faster than Vagan. If they managed to escape, they would call for reinforcements, and that would be the real challenge. Liana had another concern, the recent disappearances. Ray agreed that it was strange, but then explained that werewolves usually lived in the demon realm, far from human territory. He added that aside from dungeons, the demon realm, where demons and the demon lord lived, was surrounded by large-scale barriers. Because of that, werewolves shouldn't be able to reach human territory. Liana then pointed out that the demons had entered human lands without passing through the barrier. Ray was shocked and asked if that was really true since he had never heard of such a thing. His surprise made him glance at Liana, but after seeing her, he quickly turned his head forward again. They knew that two types of demons existed in human territory. The first type was those born in their land, and the second was those that came from dungeons. Werewolves were a type of demon that could only enter human lands through a dungeon. Ray concluded that a dungeon must exist, connecting the human and demon realms. Liana agreed, explaining that 3 years ago, an SS-ranked adventurer party found an entrance to the demon realm. They went inside and returned with proof. That was how people learned about the route. However, the government never revealed which dungeon it was. Ray now understood why the undead terror appeared in human territory. He assumed it had used that route. If that were the case, many other dangerous monsters could also enter human lands. Ray thanked Liana for the information, but suddenly realized she was pressed closely against him, skin to skin. He could feel the soft, unripe fruits on his back. He mentioned it to Liana, and she quickly apologized, saying she had finished washing his back. She then offered to wash his front, but Ray refused. After the bath, an old man named Oki apologized for visiting so late at night. He introduced himself as the village chief. Ray didn't mind the visit and asked if he was there because of the werewolves. Oki confirmed that the village was being attacked by them. The knights who came to protect them had been killed. Their food supply was running low, and the people were struggling to survive. The fort with the divine gate was the only thing keeping them safe. But he knew it was only a matter of time before the village was destroyed. Oki had a favor to ask. He wanted Ray to inform the outside world about the village's situation. If possible, he also wanted him to notify the knights in the royal capital. Of course, this would only be when they left the village, so he asked if Ray was willing to do it. Ray understood the old man's request. He explained that they had originally been on their way to the royal capital and promised to inform the authorities about the village and submit a formal request for help. Oki thanked him, saying that Ray was their only hope. Oki then apologized for rushing him, but said that Atra had an important message. When Ray asked what it was, Atra told them they should leave the village as soon as possible that night. He didn't sense any werewolves nearby, so it would be safer to leave then. However, the old man was still worried because people had only been disappearing at night. Ray said he had already heard about the disappearances from Atra and Shinoka. Oki assumed that meant Ray also knew the missing villagers were all men. However, no one knew why only men were disappearing. Since Ray was also a man, Oki warned him that staying in the village would be dangerous. Even so, leaving was just as risky because of the werewolves outside. Liana was worried and asked what they should do. Ray thought about the two incidents and what he could do at that moment. He apologized to Liana, who had been looking forward to resting, and said he wanted to leave right away. Liana was surprised but said she was fine with it since she would follow Ray anywhere. Liz asked if they were really leaving already. Shinoka then told the kids to stay in their room. Shu wanted to play with Ray and Liana, but Ray apologized and promised to visit the village again when the time was right. Shu and Liz made Ray and Liana promise to come back. Feeling sad, Liana simply said yes. While Shinoka was scolding the kids, Ray walked over to Oki. He said he had one thing to ask him. Oki asked what it was. Near the Divine Gate, Atra called out to Ray and Liana and apologized for the short notice. Ray said it was fine. He mentioned that going outside at midnight was dangerous, but if they missed this chance, they might never be able to leave the village. He sincerely apologized, but Ray told him not to. Ray then asked if it was true that Atra couldn't sense the presence of the werewolves. Atra sadly confirmed it. After hearing from Ray and Liana that they weren't attacked on the way, Atra checked the area with divine power. He assumed the werewolves were gone for some reason. Ray understood. Atra then said this might be their only chance to escape the village. Ray and Liana thanked him for his kindness. Atra told them not to worry about it and apologized again for the sudden decision. He explained that if they left now, they would be past the werewolves' territory within an hour. It was still dangerous, but he hoped they would reach the royal capital safely. He also asked them to inform the knights once they arrived. Ray agreed. The Divine Gate opened and Ray and Liana left. Atra waved goodbye. After seeing Ray and Liana leave, the werewolves finally appeared on the nearby cliff. They were relieved that the obstacle was gone and could now continue tormenting the villagers before eating them. One of the werewolves said it would be boring to just eat them right away. It was more enjoyable to hear their screams first. However, they still couldn't believe that Vegan had lost to Ray. No matter how they thought about it, Ray seemed like nothing more than an ordinary traveler. Even so, they had been ordered by Alferk to leave them alone. One of the werewolves, however, had his eyes on Ray and Liana. He didn't care much about Ray, but Liana looked like a high-quality meal to him. He could sense the magic power flowing through her. Another werewolf warned him not to get carried away, reminding him that if they caused too much trouble, the knights might come. They had already heard that a group of knights had started patrolling the villages and towns on their own. It was only a matter of time before they reached this village too. Before that happened, the werewolves planned to feast on all the villagers. One of them agreed with the plan but complained about how troublesome it had been to kidnap and eat people in secret. Now it was finally time to devour all the humans freely. One of them had already picked out a pair of children to eat later, while another agreed that children were especially delicious. They talked about how they had already taken care of the troublesome men just for this moment. The only man left in the village was a weak old man, and the rest were nothing but helpless women and children. With their decision made, the werewolves eagerly headed toward the village, ready to begin their feast. Later, the women in the village couldn't believe what they were seeing. A werewolf stood next to Atra, who was unconscious. They called out to him, but he didn't respond. He lay in a pool of his own blood. The werewolf raised its claws, and the women screamed as they ran away in fear. One of them shouted as loud as she could, warning the others that the werewolves had arrived, but one of the werewolves told her she was too late. Another werewolf went to Shinoka's inn. It reminded the villagers that there was only one way in and out, meaning they had nowhere to escape. The werewolves hunted down those who ran and even those who tried to hide. To them, the village was no longer a home, it was now a prison, a cage for everyone inside. Shinoka tried to fight back with a kitchen knife, but the werewolf easily grabbed her arm. He couldn't believe she thought such a small weapon could stop him. Annoyed, he slammed her to the ground, grumbling about how he had wanted to eat her first. Then, a new idea came to him. He planned to go after Shinoka's children first, making sure she heard their screams. He was certain their cries would make her even more terrified. Realizing the danger, Shinoka turned toward the kitchen and told Shu and Liz to run. The werewolf assumed that was the direction they had gone. Deciding to change his plan, he chose to eat Shinoka first before moving on to his real prey. However, a knife suddenly stabbed him from below, forcing his mouth shut. He screamed in pain, confused about why a knife was stuck in him. Ray said the werewolf's scream was unbearable. Then he grabbed the knife and told the werewolf to be quiet. Blood dripped onto the floor as Ray apologized to Shinoka for being late. The werewolf, confused, wondered why Ray was back in the village after already leaving. Frustrated, he cursed at Ray for tearing his mouth apart. Ray simply said he had returned to discipline some ill-mannered dogs. Angered, the werewolf lunged forward for a quick attack, but Ray easily stepped aside. Shocked, the werewolf couldn't believe how fast Ray had dodged. Then he suddenly noticed his left arm on the ground, blood pouring from the severed limb. The sight distracted him, and before he could react, Ray delivered a powerful heel kick to his face, sending him crashing into a nearby wall. As the dust settled, Ray looked around and realized the werewolf was gone. The broken windows made it clear the demon had escaped. Wounded and in pain, The werewolf stumbled away, trying to flee. His mind raced as he questioned what kind of person Ray was. At first he thought Ray might be a holy knight, but he felt no divine power from him. Still, Ray's speed was inhuman. The werewolf hadn't even seen the attack coming. If he continued fighting, he knew he would be killed. He had to escape. He had to report this to his captain at the village gate. But as he reached the entrance, his heart sank. His captain lay cold on the ground, missing his left arm, just like him. Horror filled his voice as he screamed his captain's name. He was sure this was also Ray's doing. Then he heard something behind him. Turning around, he saw Ray walking toward him. The werewolf was stunned. How had Ray caught up so fast? But then, his eyes widened as he noticed Ray holding something. Ray asked if the werewolf still couldn't tell. Then he pulled out another dead werewolf, claiming it was his friend. The werewolf was shocked to see his own brother had also been killed. He assumed Ray had set them up, but he couldn't end things like this. Suddenly, Ray appeared in front of him and apologized. He said he couldn't let him escape, so he decided to cut off his legs. The werewolf didn't expect this, but he accepted his fate. Ray then chained up the werewolves. He was relieved that no villagers had died. Thanks to Liana, most of them had been evacuated in time. Now the only thing left was to find the demon's collaborator. The villagers approached Ray and thanked him for saving them. Ray was just glad they were safe. He had kept the werewolves alive so they could testify. Then his younger self appeared and questioned his decision. His younger self asked why he didn't just kill the demons. He argued that keeping the werewolves alive was pointless since Ray already knew who the spy was. He reminded Ray that it was just like his fight with Vegan. He had the chance to kill him, but chose not to. He warned that these half-hearted actions would only lead to regret. Ray couldn't believe that a shadow of his past was appearing before him again. The village chief came out from the bushes and asked Ray how he knew the werewolves were going to attack. Ray told him to ask the divine tree keeper, who had been pretending to be dead. The villagers were shocked by this. Then Atra started moving and complained that things should have gone smoothly. Just as Ray had suspected, Atra was working with the werewolves. Atra stood up and glared at everyone. The villagers couldn't believe what they had just heard. Someone then stepped forward, clearly upset by what she just heard. Shinoka had just arrived and couldn't believe that Atra had been working with the werewolves. Everyone saw Atra as their protector, so the betrayal was shocking. The old man then spoke up, saying that Ray had told him something before leaving the village some time ago. Ray had warned him that Atra was a spy, letting the werewolves inside. At first, the old man refused to believe it, but while hiding, he saw it with his own eyes. Now he was certain Atra was the traitor. Atra then called out to Ray, demanding to know how he figured it out. Ray admitted that he had a slightly better sense of smell. He could detect the scent of werewolves on Atra's clothes. He also knew that a group of werewolves wasn't weak, yet Atra had managed to defeat them too easily. That didn't make sense, unless Atra was working with them. Ray had also noticed a faint scent of werewolves inside the village. It was clear they were behind the disappearances, but for the werewolves to get past the divine gate, they needed the help of the divine tree keeper. That's when Ray realized Atra had lied multiple times. When Atra had seen them off, he claimed to have checked the surroundings using divine power, but only the great saint from the royal capital could use that technique, and that wasn't the only lie. Atra laughed and said he couldn't believe Ray figured it out just by scent. He even joked that maybe Ray was the real werewolf. But in the end, it didn't matter. Things were getting complicated, so Atra decided to kill everyone in the village, including Ray. Ray stayed calm and asked why Atra was working with the werewolves. Atra gave only one reason: to survive. He reminded Ray how powerful the werewolves were, strong enough to defeat even the holy knights. That's why he made a deal with them. But Ray could tell Atra was lying just by watching his eyes. Still, he asked what kind of deal he made. Atra explained that in exchange for giving the werewolves food, the villagers, they agreed to let him live. Ray then asked if that was why he opened the divine gate and allowed them into the village. Atra confirmed it, and after hearing his words, Shinoka collapsed to her knees, crying. Those things didn't matter to Atra anymore because he planned to kill everyone there, which would put an end to everything. He believed his rank would rise if he killed the person who had defeated the werewolves. As long as he got promoted, he wouldn't have to stay in a village that was treated like a trash heap stuck with a dull job. With the village destroyed, there wouldn't be a need for a divine tree keeper in the area either. Ray then asked Atra why he became a holy knight. He remembered that to become one, a person had to accept divine power. If the power didn't merge well, there was a chance they could die. Only those who survived this dangerous trial could become holy knights. Atra confirmed this was true. Ray then pointed out that when someone was willing to risk their life, it was usually for money or for someone important to them. He reminded Atra that he had gone through such a deadly trial and hinted that he must have had someone important to him. Atra shouted that Ray was right. He had gained the power to protect the people who mattered to him. He then asked Ray if he had ever heard the story of his family. Ray gave a silent nod. Ray said he understood how Atra felt and told him that revenge had no meaning. He asked Atra to stop, but Atra finally lost control. He shouted that someone like Ray wouldn't understand. Everything had been taken from him, and he hadn't been able to do anything about it. He said it was too late. Far too late. No matter what Ray said, his family would never come back. They had been his whole world. And because of that, he had decided to unleash his anger on the village, killing everyone, even the people of the entire country. Ray realized that Atra had no intention of stopping. Both of them took their stances, ready to fight. Ray knew that Atra needed someone to put an end to this. The two clashed in the end, a healer's knife against a holy knight's spear. Atra had a wife who was also his childhood friend. She often got sick and was not very strong. Because of this, Atra wanted to protect her. He decided to become a holy knight, thinking that if he became powerful, he could keep her safe. He promised himself that he would use his strength to protect the people she loved. To reach that goal, Atra went through very hard training. He pushed himself as far as he could and in time gained divine power. This turned him into a divine knight. After that, he and his wife were blessed with 2 children, 1 son and 1 daughter. Atra felt truly happy. In his heart, he made a promise to protect his family and their smiles no matter what. But that happiness didn't last forever. Atra got a new job. He was sent to a faraway village called Vauden to work as a divine tree keeper. Being so far from his family made him feel alone. Even though he was a strong holy knight, he couldn't be there for them. His job in Vauden would last for 10 years. After that, he would be sent to another place. As time went on, Atra slowly started to forget why he had worked so hard to become strong in the first place. Then, something terrible happened. The town where his family lived was attacked by monsters. Later, Atra found out that the government had sent a group of holy knights to fight the monsters. But all of them were diamond-class knights. New and not very experienced, they didn't even have a captain. In the end, only 2 of those knights and about half of the townspeople lived through the attack. Atra's wife and children were not among the survivors. At first, it didn't feel real, but deep down, Atra knew it was true. Later, he learned even more. The government had used the town as a training area for new knights. They didn't bother sending skilled fighters. Atra learned this from the 2 survivors who came to Vauden village to hunt werewolves. They told him everything, not knowing he was from the destroyed town. They even laughed about it. They said they only survived because they ran away. They joked that it wasn't worth dying for a training mission. Then they asked Atra if he agreed. He acted like he did, but deep inside he remembered all the pain he had gone through. The long hours of training, the moments he nearly died. All just to protect his family. In that moment, something inside him broke. On the day it all happened, he allowed the 2 holy knights to be killed by the werewolves. As for the others, he took their lives himself. The werewolves were confused and asked why he had attacked his own allies. Atra answered without emotion, saying they had always been his enemies. Soon after, a demon familiar arrived. It had been sent by one of the 4 deadly demons named Alfurk. This creature served the werewolves' leader and came to speak with Atra in Alfurk's place. Alfurk wanted to team up with Atra to destroy the kingdom which had become corrupt. He said they shared the same goal. Atra didn't think twice. He agreed and started by planning to destroy the village first. When no one was watching, Atra quietly let the werewolves enter the village. His plan was to slowly reduce the number of people living there until no one was left. If he could erase the village, he believed he would finally break free from the curse of being the divine tree keeper. But every time the werewolves took someone, Atra's guilt grew. Regret built up inside him, and his heart felt heavier each time. Alfurk's dark voice kept echoing in his thoughts, and Atra felt like he couldn't turn back anymore. He had gone too far. He didn't even understand why he kept doing these things. He just wanted everything to stop. Still, even if he destroyed the village and gained his freedom, what would be left of him in the end? He silently hoped someone would give him a reason to keep going. But deep down, he knew one truth that hurt the most. His family was never coming back. Liana ran after the children, warning them that it was still dangerous outside. But when they arrived, they saw Ray and Atra already fighting. Atra rushed forward with his spear, but Ray dodged easily and kicked back. Atra blocked the attack and grabbed Ray's leg. As Atra swung his spear again, Ray pushed off the ground with his other leg and kicked with that one. The unexpected move caught Atra off guard and both fighters stepped back to give themselves some space. Atra still felt the force of that last hit. In that moment, he realized Ray's magic and fighting skills were far beyond normal. Ray's movements had no openings. Atra had fought many strong people before, but Ray was different. From the first time they met, Atra had felt something strange about him. Now it made sense. Ray wasn't just strong, he was something far more. Atra saw him as a monster in human form and started to expect something great from him. At the same time, Ray noticed something important too. Atra was supposed to be a diamond-class holy knight, but his strength felt even greater, like a ruby class or higher. He was clearly stronger than the werewolves they had fought earlier. On top of that, Atra had powerful divine energy. Ray remembered that divine energy came from a person's emotions or strong feelings. In Atra's case, Ray guessed it came from his love for his family. Ray didn't know what to do next. Then Atra suddenly asked in a cold and mocking voice why Ray was still hesitating. He shouted that killing him would solve everything. The villagers around them and even Ray himself were shocked by what he said. Atra moved his spear to the side and began to chant. His anger turned into fire. Flames covered his weapon, making it look like a fiery beast. He shouted that everyone would burn and die if no one stopped him. Atra charged at Ray, and when he attacked, the hit caused a huge explosion. Liana screamed Ray's name in fear, but while everyone focused on the fight, no one noticed one of the werewolves had started to break free from its chains. Atra's eyes widened when he saw Ray still standing without a single scratch. Somehow Ray had stopped his strongest attack. At that moment, Ray touched Atra's chest, focused all his magic and released it in one powerful burst. The blast sent Atra flying and left him badly hurt. Groaning, Atra said that it had been the perfect chance to end his life, but Ray still didn't do it. Ray stood silently, still unsure of what Atra was really trying to do. With his great power, Atra could have destroyed the village by himself. But when Ray remembered Atra's recent mocking words, he understood that Atra was still confused and lost. Ray believed he could still reach him through words. He told Atra to stop, reminding him that his precious memories would also be burned and turned to ashes. Ray asked him to remember the faces of the people who mattered to him. Atra told him to be quiet, saying that his feelings had nowhere else to go anymore and should just burn and disappear. Right before Atra could attack Ray, Liana screamed as she was pushed to the ground. Both men stopped fighting. They saw Shinoka lying on the ground and her children held by a werewolf. The monster said he didn't want things to end like this. He told Atra to keep Ray busy. Shinoka called out to her kids. Ray saw that the werewolf had grown back his arms and legs. He found it strange because he thought werewolves shouldn't be able to heal like that. The werewolf then tried to escape while carrying both children in his arms. Ray rushed to stop him. He stepped away from the divine gate to fight Atra, but at this rate the monster could get away. Ray knew things weren't finished yet. He called out to Atra and asked if he truly had no one left who mattered to him. He questioned if Atra's glance toward the children had been fake. In Atra's mind, the faces of the kids reminded him of what his own children might have looked like. He also remembered his weak wife asking him to use his strength to protect the villagers and children like them. Atra clenched his teeth as he realized the pain and sadness had made him forget the other important things in his life besides his own family. He lit up his spear with power and screamed with all his strength. He now knew that he also had to protect the smiles of the children and the lives of the villagers. Deep down, he had wanted to protect them too. The werewolf saw Atra's attack coming, but the strike was missed and the divine gate was hit instead. The monster laughed and asked where Atra had been aiming. But at that moment, the divine gate suddenly activated. Atra had actually triggered it with his spear. While the werewolf stood there confused, Ray quickly caught up and cut off the monster's arms, saving the kids. Atra then picked up his spear and threw it straight at the werewolf. With one strong hit to the head, the monster burned into ashes. Atra tried to catch his breath when the kids suddenly ran to him, hugging and thanking him. Atra looked confused and said he didn't think he did anything worth thanking. Ray also thanked him, but admitted it was his own fault for putting the kids in danger. Still, he said if Atra hadn't activated the divine gate, he wouldn't have been able to save them. Ray knew that Atra's strong will and feelings had helped protect the children too. Then Ray reached out his hand and asked if Atra had finally found his answer. Atra stared at him quietly, then looked down with dull eyes. He clenched his fist, closed his eyes, and thought of his family and the villagers he had been protecting all this time. His eyes slowly lit up with determination as he took Ray's hand. He quietly admitted that it was his loss. Meanwhile, a man studied the body of a dead animal lying on the ground. A nearby soldier, who called him captain, asked what was wrong. The captain explained that ever since they entered the forest, all they had seen were dead animals that looked like they had been eaten by monsters. He said things were not looking good and suggested they hurry to Vonda village. Back in the village, Atra admitted he had lost. He looked quietly at the children and told Ray he was sorry for all the trouble he had caused. Ray was simply relieved that Atra had finally found what he had been searching for. Atra then told the children to go on ahead. After the children left, Atra shared what he had learned from the werewolves. He said the holy knights were already near the village, and once they arrived, he would be taken to the royal capital and locked up in a huge prison called the Forbidden Dark Abyss. This prison was run by the barrier masters from the Vidrador clan. Ray started to understand what might happen to Atra. The Forbidden Dark Abyss had been guarded by the Vidrador clan under the king's orders for many generations. Long ago, demons had attacked it, but the prison still stood strong. Along with prisoners, dangerous monsters were also locked inside, including an SSS-ranked monster from old rumors. No one who was sent there had ever returned, so people began calling it the Cradle of Sin. When Ray heard the name Vidrador clan, it reminded him of Loki. Atra noticed the change in his face and asked what was wrong. Ray said it was nothing and added that maybe if he had arrived earlier, he could have stopped Atra from causing the tragedy. Atra told him not to worry about the past since there was no point in thinking about what might have happened. He said that since they probably wouldn't see each other again, he wanted to thank Ray. This time, Atra didn't lose something precious to him. Ray then realized that no matter what kind of power he had gained, he couldn't change the past or see the future. So he made a promise to use the power he got from Yggdrasil to help the people he could still save. The two went back to the village and the people began getting their weapons ready. Atra said this reaction was expected. He dropped his spear and said sorry to Ray. Then he asked for one final favor. He wanted Ray to protect the villagers until the Holy Knights arrived. He also asked him to tell the Holy Knights that he had been killed by the werewolves. Ray didn't want to agree. He thought it would be a false report, and lying about something like that could be dangerous. Killing someone who served the divine tree was a serious crime, and the punishment was death. Atra raised both hands and knelt down in front of everyone. Ray became worried. If the villagers really went through with it, they might end up in danger too. He figured that Atra wanted to trick the Holy Knights so the villagers could live peacefully again. But Ray also felt that Atra had missed something important. The old village chief walked up to Atra alone. He said sorry for everything. He realized that he hadn't helped Atra deal with his emotions earlier. Atra was surprised and told him it wasn't his fault. He reminded the chief that many villagers had died because of him. Atra said he wouldn't even complain if they decided to end his life. But the village chief shook his head. He said they wouldn't do that. Still, he admitted that many people had lost their loved ones because of the werewolves. It was true that most of them now carried deep hatred toward Atra. At that moment, Shinoka walked up to Atra. She said she couldn't forgive him even if it was the werewolves who had taken her husband's life because he had helped them. She said she would keep feeling that anger toward him for the rest of her life. But she also thanked him for saving her children and for protecting the village all this time. She said those things would always be true. She added that she and the other villagers were thankful for what he had done. Hearing this, Atra finally broke down in tears. He couldn't believe there were still people who cared about him and saw him as someone important. He dropped to his knees crying loudly and apologized. Everyone around him felt emotional and concerned. Then Liana went over to Ray. They checked on each other to make sure they were okay. The pain from everything that had happened had left deep marks, but those scars became a reason to keep going. Because of this, Ray realized that both Atra and the villagers had begun to move forward. Suddenly, the old village chief called out to Ray. He said he didn't know how to fully express his thanks. He also gave thanks to Liana for helping evacuate the people. But Liana admitted she had put Shinoka's children in danger. Ray gently patted her head and told her she had still done a good job. He also thanked her. Right after that, someone nearby mentioned that they had arrived too late. Atra was shocked when he saw who it was. It was the same captain he had met earlier in the forest. The man was from the King's Knight Army, Captain Tarazed of the Blue Dragon Division. Tarazed noticed the werewolves nearby and asked who Ray was. Atra quickly stepped forward. When Tarazed saw how badly hurt he looked, he asked Atra to explain what had happened. After listening, Tarazed understood most of what had gone on in the village. However, Ray noticed that Tarazed didn't seem surprised at all. Tarazed admitted that the kingdom was a mess. As someone who had also been pushed around by the kingdom, he had seen many people being treated unfairly. He said he didn't really want to do this, but he had no choice. He needed to take Atra to the royal capital and listen to the situation there again. He wanted to talk more about it, but Atra apologized. Tarazed knew Atra too well. He figured Atra had only done what he thought was right, but now Atra was living on borrowed time. Tarazed told him that he had to pay for his crimes in prison because death was usually the only punishment for something like this. Ray overheard parts of their conversation. He learned that people who had divine power, whether they were knights or something else, would not be sentenced to death. But no one really knew the reason why. Then, Tarazed turned to Ray and apologized for questioning him while he was still tired. He asked Ray to explain what had happened from his point of view. Atra had already told him that Ray was the one who defeated the 3 werewolves, and even Atra himself. Tarazed was surprised to hear that, especially since Ray was just a white mage. He guessed that Ray was the same Ray Din Huel who had once worked with the adventurer group Gunkan Odongwa. Ray was surprised that Tarazed knew who he was. Atra was even more surprised to find out that Ray had been a white mage all along. Ray admitted he didn't expect anyone to remember him. Then Tarazed realized he hadn't properly introduced himself. He said he was the captain of the Blue Dragon Division, part of the King's Knight Army. His rank was Ruby. He explained that high-ranked holy knights often worked with adventurers. While he didn't remember every name, he did remember the names of members from the top-ranked parties. Ray remembered that the last update about him should have been from 5 years ago. Tarazed then shared that Gunkan Odongwa had recently been promoted to S rank. Once any party reached S rank, all holy knights were made aware of them. Ray was surprised to hear this. Tarazed asked if he didn't already know. Ray said he wasn't part of Gunkan Odongwa anymore. Tarazed then figured Ray didn't know about the accident inside the dungeon either. He didn't know all the details but said that while Gunkan Odongwa was exploring an A-ranked dungeon, they ran into a monster with an S-rank level threat. The whole team suffered serious injuries except for the white mage. The others were still receiving medical treatment. Ray suddenly became quiet. He couldn't imagine his old companions getting hurt. Back when he was banished, he felt angry at them, but after meeting Norn, he found a place where he felt like he belonged. Right now, his goal was to meet Nenemoa. He had no plans to get involved with Loki and the others anymore. He had already shut off his feelings toward them. At least that's what he believed, but deep inside he still felt unsure. Then Tarazed said he wanted to ask something. He remembered that Ray used to be a skilled white mage and asked why he left Gunkan Odongwa to become a traveler. Ray answered that he wasn't talented. He had learned magic by himself, and even his healing spells weren't done properly. He didn't leave by choice. He was banished because people thought he was useless. Atra was shocked that Ray had been treated that way. Tarazed didn't really want to say it out loud, but he mentioned that Gunkan Odongwa must have been blind to banish someone like Ray. Ray asked what he meant, but Tarazed only smiled and said he wanted to ask for advice. He then invited Ray to join his Blue Dragon division. Tarazed didn't want to lose someone who could both fight and heal. However, he stopped talking when he noticed his subordinates staring at him strangely. He suddenly realized he had been trying to recruit someone without thinking it through. Ray looked at Tarazed's back. He remembered how the Knight's army had great power, equal to the king's own army. Many of them acted proudly just because of their position. Tarazed held the Ruby rank, the second highest rank among the Holy Knights. Most people at that level looked down on adventurers, but Tarazed seemed different. Tarazed suddenly remembered something and handed a piece of paper to Ray. When Ray looked at it, he saw a reward notice offering 300 gold coins for defeating the werewolves. The amount surprised him so much that he jumped out of his seat. Tarazed told him to exchange the check for money at the Royal Capital's bank, but Ray said he didn't do it for the reward. Instead, he asked Tarazed to use the money to help rebuild the village. Tarazed laughed, impressed by how kind Ray was. He liked Ray even more and thought about inviting him to join his division. However, he quickly dropped the idea when he noticed his subordinates staring at him with disapproval. He then promised to take care of rebuilding the village, saying it was their responsibility from the start. That included finding someone new to guard the divine tree, and also fixing the divine gate. He explained that the gate was damaged when Atra forced it open, but he told them not to worry as he would handle the repairs himself. Tarazed thanked Ray for stopping Atra from ending his life. He said the reward was also his way of showing gratitude. It might not be enough, but he still asked Ray to accept it. Ray finally agreed and said he hoped they could take care of the village. Tarazed told him to leave it to him. With that, he announced that the rebuilding of the village would begin. He then called Atra over, saying he still needed to ask more about the demon who had convinced him to switch sides. Atra replied that he also wanted Ray to hear the story. Everyone eventually found out that it was Alfurk, one of the 4 deadly demons. Tarazed couldn't believe it was one of those 4 of all people. Ray didn't seem to know who they were, so Tarazed explained. The 4 deadly demons were also known as the 4 Knights of the Demon Realm. They were trusted followers of the Demon Lord. All of them were dangerous monsters with an SSS rating. Atra said he had only met Alfurk's familiar, but even that was enough to shake him emotionally. Tarazed began to wonder if Alfurk had some kind of power that could control emotions and the mind. Ray then asked why Atra wanted to know so much about these demons. Atra explained that Alfurk was actually targeting Ray. He said that Alfurk had ordered the werewolves to leave Ray alone, warning them that Ray would only get in the way of a plan to destroy the village. Ray understood and showed no surprise. The others were shocked that he didn't seem worried about an SSS-rated monster going after him. Ray said he already knew someone had been watching him for a while and now everything made sense. He thanked Atra for the information. Ray had suspected it was a powerful demon watching him, but he didn't expect it to be Alfurk, one of the 4 deadly demons. Meanwhile, in a large mansion, the maids were panicking. Someone kept asking for light, even though it was already morning. It turned out to be Jimeno, who had just woken up. She was now blind and had lost both of her legs. She moved around nervously, scared because she couldn't see anything. A maid shouted at her to calm down and reminded her that the sun was already up and the room was filled with light. Jimeno was confused and wondered why everything looked dark. The maid reminded her that she had gone exploring in a dungeon the day before, where she had lost both of her eyes. Jimeno didn't want to accept the truth. She screamed as loud as she could. She couldn't believe she was blind and badly hurt. She wished that someone could heal her eyes and body. Just then, an image of a young Ray appeared in her mind. She stopped yelling and quietly called out for Ray's help. On the other hand, Ray and Liana rode a carriage on their way to the royal capital. It didn't take long before they arrived. When they got to the gate, both of them were registered. A woman told them they could now enter the capital freely through the East Gate, which was part of the Blue Dragon Division's area, without needing to wait or show an ID. Ray thanked the woman, whose name was Miliana, but wondered if it was really okay to have their magic power signatures added to the list. Miliana, who was the vice captain, said it actually wasn't allowed. The list was meant for knights who were in a rush, but their captain was known to be stubborn once he made up his mind, and it seemed like he had taken a liking to Ray and Liana. Soon after, Tarazed noticed them as they finished. Ray thanked him for letting them ride the carriage. Tarazed told him not to worry about it since they were heading to the same place anyway. Still, he said he didn't expect to see them again so soon. The day before, after talking with Tarazed and Atra, Ray and Liana said goodbye to Shinoka and the others, then left for the capital. But early the next morning, while traveling, they coincidentally ran into Tarazed's group, who were also on their way back to the capital after finishing their work in a village. Tarazed invited them to ride with his team. That was how Ray and Liana were finally able to reach the capital. Tarazed said he wanted to show them around, but he had to submit a report to the headquarters first. Ray told him he had already been helpful enough. Tarazed then said he wanted to have a drink with them, but Miliana shouted at him to leave right away. Before going, he told Ray to count on him or the Blue Dragon Division if they ever got into trouble, or if Ray ever changed his mind about joining. Ray said he would think about it and thanked him for the warm welcome. Tarazed added that Liana was always welcome too. With that, Miliana pulled her captain away. For now, Ray and Liana have decided to go inside the city. The capital was full of life, with adventurers walking around, people shopping in stores, and even the pubs filled with noise. Seeing all of it made Ray feel a bit emotional. It had been 5 years, and until 2 years ago he hadn't even thought about leaving Yggdrasil. He couldn't believe he was walking through the capital again like this. Then he remembered that Liana had been in the capital before for her training. But just as he turned to speak to her, she had disappeared from view. Ray looked around and soon found her standing still, staring at something. She was looking at the information board. Ray asked if there was somewhere she wanted to go. Liana looked flustered and admitted she didn't really know. During her training, she never had the freedom to explore the city, so everything felt new now that she could see it up close. She hadn't even realized there were so many stores and buildings. Seeing the look on her face, Ray suggested they go sightseeing, but Liana said she didn't want to bother him. She knew Ray had a goal to reach and she didn't want to waste his time. Ray figured that telling her he wanted to spend time with her might only make her feel pressured. So instead, he asked her to come along and help him carry things while he ran errands. That way, she could enjoy herself a little. Liana quickly agreed without hesitation. Ray then asked if she remembered their promise to eat sweet food once they got to the capital. Liana's face lit up as she remembered. Ray smiled and told her they would grab something sweet after doing some shopping. The two of them walked around the shopping district. Ray pointed at a shop that bought and sold materials. Right next to it was a clothing store where Ray decided to buy a new set of clothes. After trying them on, he asked if he looked strange wearing the outfit the store clerk picked for him. Liana said he looked great in it, even a bit impressive. Hearing her say that made Ray feel shy, but he chose to wear the clothes anyway. Liana was quiet for a moment, almost too surprised to speak until Ray called out to her. He told her it was her turn to get proper gear. Without wasting time, Liana got a full set of equipment. She then asked Ray if he was really sure about buying all of it for her. Ray explained that he wanted a sword that suited her. Besides, the sword given to him by the village chief had already cracked. Liana grew concerned, thinking Ray bought more than just the sword. Ray realized that he hadn't been able to help her at all. Earlier, Liana had felt awful for letting the children get hurt. She believed that if she had protected them better, they wouldn't have suffered. This happened before they met Tarazed's group. At that moment, Liana finally let out the feelings she had been holding inside. Even though she had trained in both magic and weapons, she froze whenever monsters appeared. Ray understood that no matter how much someone trained, if they hadn't faced a real fight, they wouldn't truly feel the fear that came with risking their life. A single mistake could lead to death. It was normal to be scared. Ray gently wiped her tears. He knew how frustrated she was with her own weakness. The sword she got from the village chief was a sign of her strong desire to change. Liana admitted that she hated being someone who couldn't do anything, but Ray could see from her eyes that she was a kind and hardworking person. He told her that he understood and then offered to help train her. So as they continued their journey to the capital, Ray began training her. He had seen her in battle and noticed that she had already learned the basics well. Her attack moves in particular were pretty solid. In fact, there were times when Ray thought she had real talent. Still, there was something important that needed to be addressed. Liana's fear made her look away from her enemies without even realizing it, and it caused her to move more slowly. But if she could use what Rie had taught her and learn to control that fear, she would definitely grow stronger. She could even be strong enough to fight an A-rank monster by herself. Later, Liana ate some sweets and Ray asked if they tasted good. She happily said they did. It was her first time eating a parfait and she didn't know it could be that tasty. She also thought it looked cute, almost too pretty to eat. Then she noticed Ray watching her and quickly said sorry for getting too caught up in the moment. Ray told her it was alright to enjoy herself and that it made him happy too. He smiled without meaning to. Liana once again said how amazing Ray's healing power was. He had healed Shinoka's child without any trouble. When Liz had been grabbed by a werewolf, Ray had checked her using aura techniques and found a crack in her spine. He healed it right away. Most healing just helped the body recover faster, but Ray's healing looked like he turned back time. The injury was completely gone in seconds. Liana said even the great saint didn't have healing that powerful. That's when Ray noticed something. Liana had been able to see how his aura moved. He realized she had a sharp eye. As Ray tried to explain his healing powers to Liana, he remembered what Norn had told him earlier. She said that what he was doing wasn't regular healing. It was something completely different. She warned him that both the kingdom and the demons might come after him if they found out. She firmly told him not to share it with others so easily. When Liana noticed his silence, she asked if something was wrong or if she had said anything strange. Ray just said it was nothing and asked her to forget about it. Usually, to become a white mage, a person had to register with the White Mage Guild and join a special school. Only after learning the basics and finishing hands-on training could someone call themselves a white mage. But Ray never went through that process. He was found by Loki, who gave him books to read, and Ray learned healing on his own. Because of that, he didn't know what other people's healing looked like. To him, the way he used healing was normal. That's why he never realized he was doing something unusual, and kept using a large amount of aura when he healed. After they finished eating, Liana thanked Ray for the dessert. Ray was happy to hear that and said sorry for making her walk around so much. He blamed himself for getting lost. The capital had changed a lot in the 5 years he was away. Liana said it wasn't a problem at all. She enjoyed seeing different places with him. Besides, he had already given her an expensive sword. She promised to become stronger and to be someone who could help him. Ray smiled and thanked her, gently patting her head. But their peaceful moment didn't last. A man nearby looked shocked when he saw Ray. The white hair was something he could never mistake. Ray turned to see who it was and recognized the face right away. He and Suglins stared at each other and the mood suddenly grew tense. With Ray standing in front of him, Suglins couldn't bring himself to ask why he was still alive. 5 years earlier, their team had challenged the most difficult SSS-ranked dungeon, the Labyrinth. But the monsters deep inside were too powerful, and they were no match. When they realized they couldn't make it back to the entrance, they used teleport stones to escape. At that moment, they left Ray behind. Part of the reason was to save a teleport stone, which cost thousands of gold coins. But more than that, it was the perfect chance to get rid of Ray. His abilities didn't match the rest of the team. They used the situation to secretly abandon him. That was how they left behind the useless white mage. But now, Ray stood before Sunst. He looked different, but he was definitely the same Ray, the same white mage they had once thrown away. Suglins was shocked that Ray had survived, but he also knew this was a serious problem. If Ray told others what happened, that they had left him behind, it would ruin Sug. He would lose his rank and be cast out from his family. The same thing would happen to Loki and Himeno. Everything would fall apart for Gunkino Dongwa. Even worse, Loki was already in conflict with the higher-ups. They couldn't afford more trouble. Suglins saw only one choice. Before Ray could speak the truth, he had to get rid of him. He stayed calm and acted surprised, asking how Ray had survived the dungeon. Then, pretending it was just a friendly match, he challenged Ray to a fight. He said it had been 5 years, so they should test their skills. But in reality, he planned to kill him. Ray ended up following Suglinst, with Liana walking beside him. Of all people to run into, it had to be Suglinst. The situation quickly became a problem. Ray knew he should have walked away right then, but he also knew what kind of person St was. Someone who would cause a scene no matter who was around. According to Terra Zed, Suglinst's old teammates had been badly hurt, and it seemed like only Suglinst made it out with light injuries. Liana asked how Ray knew him. Ray simply said he was someone he used to know and apologized for getting her involved in the situation. Suddenly, St stopped walking. At that moment, painful memories flashed in Ray's mind. Moments where Suglinst had beaten him up. They had arrived at a place that held memories for Ray. It was where they used to train. Suglinst mentioned how Ray was always a bother back then. He also pointed out the broken wood and metal scraps around them, calling them useful now. That's when Ray realized Suglinst's true reason for bringing him here. He wanted to kill him. The slums they were in were used as dumping grounds for garbage from the royal capital. Everything here either got burned or thrown into the sea. It was the perfect place to hide a body. Ray figured Suglinst was afraid he might talk about what happened in the dungeon. Suglinst then asked if Ray felt nostalgic about all the discipline he had given him. But to outsiders, Ray was just a punching bag, someone they used to let out their anger. Suglinst claimed that Ray became a proper white mage only because of his harsh training. Ray calmly said he wouldn't tell anyone as long as Suglinst left him alone. Suglinst looked surprised by how confident Ray had become. They stared at each other in silence until Liana stepped in. She asked Suglinst to stop because Ray was clearly uncomfortable. That made Suglinst angry. He tried to punch Liana, but Ray blocked it with his bare hand. Ray then said he had one last thing to say. As Suglinst raised his fist again, he said he didn't care what Ray had to say, even if he was going to beg for mercy. Now, Ray could clearly see the hatred in Suglinst's eyes. Suglinst was no longer pretending. He really wanted to kill him. Ray told him that this would be the last time they got involved in each other's lives. Suglinst laughed. He said that was true because he was going to kill Ray right here and now. But Ray warned him, if Suglinst ever came near them again, he would kill him. That warning made Suglinst furious. The idea of Ray killing him was too much for him to accept. He shouted that Ray would suffer before he died and rushed at him, aiming to cut off his arm first. Ray dodged the attack easily. Suglinst was shocked by the way Ray looked down at him with calm eyes. He kept attacking, but nothing worked. He couldn't believe someone he once saw as weak was now standing above him. Then Ray lightly tapped Suglinst on the back and it sent him flying. Ray asked if he finally understood that he was no longer someone who could be killed so easily. Suglinst gritted his teeth and shouted that he wouldn't hold back anymore. He said he would kill Ray just like he wanted. Ray understood that Suglinst was now ready to use his full power. Suglinst was angry that someone like Ray, a white mage slave, was standing up to him. Suglinst rushed straight at Ray while yelling for him to die. He was using his strongest and most signature attack, Charge. No matter which way the target tried to dodge, Suglinst's incredible strength let him quickly change direction and strike. However, the move would stop if someone managed to destroy his weapon. As he attacked, Suglinst smiled. Ray quickly noticed that Suglinst was changing his path. It turned out Suglinst wasn't aiming for Ray, he was going after Liana instead. Liana couldn't move. Her legs had frozen in fear. Suglinst kicked Liana, and before Ray could react, Suglinst snapped his fingers. Large boulders suddenly fell between them, blocking Ray's path. He couldn't get through. Suglinst said it would be boring to kill Ray right away, so he decided to have fun with the woman first. He told Ray to just stand there and watch. At that moment, a butler appeared and apologized. He said Suglinst wouldn't stop once he got like this. The man introduced himself as Gusai, Suglinst's personal butler. Gusai warned Ray not to make the powerful Didanis family angry, especially as someone from a low rank. He suggested that Ray should take things slowly. He also said Ray could fight Suglinst later, after his master was done playing with the woman. But Ray suddenly released a wave of killing intent. His voice was sharp and cold as he ordered the butler to remove the boulders immediately. Meanwhile, Suglinst told Liana not to die yet because he still wanted to have fun with her. He believed Ray wouldn't be able to stop him because his butler had used some kind of magic. Liana couldn't move. Fear had frozen her. If Suglinst had used his blade instead of kicking her, she would have been killed instantly. The large boulder blocking the path also meant Ray couldn't come to save her. Liana felt certain she was going to die. Suglinst then noticed how much she was shaking and called her reaction amusing. He was already drooling and his body showed signs of excitement. He tried to calm himself down, thinking it would be no fun to break her so quickly. Before that, he wanted to know her connection to Ray. He was sure she wasn't his daughter or anything like that. Liana responded that Ray was her treasured master. Suglinst was surprised that someone he thought was worthless had a servant. When Liana heard that, her face changed. Suglinst noticed it and guessed she had already heard stories from Ray about how he had been abandoned. He called Ray trash and seemed to enjoy saying it. Since Liana stayed quiet, Suglinst assumed she didn't actually know what happened in the past. He remembered how funny it was when Ray had begged them not to leave him, crying like a child. Liana told him to stop talking. She already knew that this man would kill her eventually. She asked him to take back what he said about Ray. She said Ray wasn't useless. She said he was a kind and good person. She begged him to stop insulting her master. Then she raised her sword and promised she would never forgive him. Suglinst became curious about her and told her to show what she could do and fight him. At that moment, Liana's emotions helped her break free from fear. Because of this, her hidden fighting skills started to show. She promised herself that she would protect Ray this time. Suglinst attacked first. He aimed to cut off one of her arms, but he didn't know that Liana could use magic, specifically water magic. It was strong enough to knock down a grown person. Even so, she didn't use her magic right away. Instead, she surprised him by blocking his large sword. Suglinst couldn't believe it. Liana had two reasons for not using her magic. First, water magic used up a lot of aura. Since she still lacked experience in real battles, her aura wasn't strong enough to keep her body enhanced while using magic at the same time. If she pushed herself to use it, she would hit her limit almost right away. The second reason was that she wanted to win using the techniques Ray had taught her. She wanted to prove that her teacher wasn't someone others should look down on. Suglinst had angrily warned her not to get overconfident just because she blocked one of his attacks. While focusing on the fight, Liana remembered what Ray had told her about the 4 important things to keep in mind during battle. First, she had to watch where her opponent was looking and try to guess his next move by feeling the change in his aura. With this, Liana dodged one of Suglint's strikes. Second, she should only attack when she was sure her attack would land. Soon, she saw a chance and stabbed Suglint, hitting her target. Third, she had to be aware of the timing and flow of the fight, so she quickly stepped back to create distance. The fourth point was to stay in control of her own aura. If she could remember and apply these 4 points, she believed she could fight well and grow stronger. Suglint was already furious. He kept swinging his weapon and yelling at Liana to just get hit already. While dodging and blocking, Liana felt his attacks growing heavier and faster. She couldn't find any chance to strike back. She began to wonder what she should do next. At that moment, Suglint swung with all his strength. Even though Liana managed to block the attack, it was too strong. The force sent her flying, and she crashed to the ground, rolling across it. Liana was breathing heavily as she lay on the ground. She didn't have the strength to get up. Suglint thought she had run out of energy to keep using her magic and move around. He saw that if things continued like this, Liana would die. So, with a cruel smile, he told her to beg for forgiveness, crawl on the ground, and lick his shoes. He also warned her not to forget to say that her master was a useless piece of trash. Otherwise, he would kill her. Liana began talking about Ray. Suglint laughed loudly. He knew how frightening death was. But Liana didn't obey him. She repeated that her master was the most amazing person in the world. Then she stood up and said she wouldn't let someone like him insult her master's name. Seeing how determined and loyal she was, Suglint told her to die then. He charged at her with his special move, Charge. Liana had no way to block it, at least that was true until just a moment ago. As Suglint rushed toward her, Liana focused deeply. Her mind reached the highest level of concentration. It was the sharpest focus she had ever felt. Time seemed to slow down, and with her faster reflexes, she managed to deflect Suglint's blade at the perfect moment. Suglint was charging at full speed. Using his momentum against him, Liana drove her sword into a small gap in his armor. She pushed it through while releasing the powerful energy of Ray that flowed inside her. Suglint screamed in pain and struck Liana with a punch, sending her flying to the side. Blood started pouring from his shoulder. He couldn't believe a sword had pierced through it. He shouted in pain and cursed at Liana. At that moment, the nearby boulders exploded and Suglint's butler slid across the ground, landing near Ray's feet. Ray noticed that he wasn't hurt at all. He quickly ran to help Liana and saw that her arms were badly twisted and broken. He blamed himself for not finishing the fight with the butler sooner. He used his healing magic on her right away. Liana asked if she had been of any help. Ray gently patted her head and told her she had done an amazing job. Feeling happy, Liana closed her eyes to rest. She had done more than just a good job. Suglint had been a warrior from an S-ranked party after all. Just being able to fight him and survive was incredible. The battle had drained all the energy from the contract mark on her body. Suddenly, Suglint began shouting and demanded that Ray heal him too, or he would kill him. Ray calmly reminded him that they were no longer teammates. He also said that healing someone without permission could bring trouble from the church and others. Suglint shouted again, threatening to break Ray's limbs if he didn't obey. Without warning, Ray appeared in front of him and kicked the hilt of Liana's sword, pushing it deeper into Suglint's shoulder. Suglint couldn't understand how Ray was still able to move after using magic on Liana. Ray then told him that he would heal his wounds, but only if he promised to leave both him and Liana alone. Suglint ignored the offer and insisted on being healed. Surprisingly, Ray started using healing magic on him. Suglint thought that once he recovered, Ray wouldn't be able to fight back, and he could teach him a lesson. But Ray suddenly stopped the healing and grabbed Suglint's hand tightly. Suglint told him to stop, but Ray refused. He asked if Suglint had ever stopped when Ray begged him to in the past. Suglint tried to apologize, but Ray crushed his hand without hesitation. Suglint screamed in pain and rolled on the ground. Ray remembered how Suglint used to enjoy causing pain like this. Now all Ray could feel from his screams was sadness and suffering. Suglint cried and begged for forgiveness, asking for his life to be spared. Ray gave him a cold glare and warned him not to ever appear in front of them again, because there wouldn't be a next time. Suglint promised not to return and kept apologizing over and over. In the end, Ray had no choice but to heal him. While Ray was healing him, Suglint kept crying and thanking him. At the same time, an image of a younger Ray appeared behind them and quietly said that Ray really was something. Later that night, Liana woke up in bed, and Ray greeted her with a good morning, even though it was still night. Confused, Liana asked if she had been sleeping the whole time. Ray told her not to push herself too hard. Liana worried that she had taken up too much of his time, but Ray told her not to think about that and just focus on resting. Her wounds were fully healed, but she had used up all her aura during the battle. Because of that, she wouldn't be able to move for a while. Curious, Liana asked what happened to Suglint. Ray said that he had run away and wouldn't bother them anymore, especially after how well Liana fought. She asked if that was really true. Ray explained that he had healed his wounds and Suglunst had carried his butler and escaped. He told her that Suglunst wasn't dead. Liana was relieved to hear that. Ray believed that human lives were heavy, and he didn't want Liana to carry that kind of burden. He also knew that she feared something like that deep down. If she did, it might crush her and change who she was. But just then, Ray noticed Liana quietly staring at him. He thought maybe she needed to go to the bathroom and offered to carry her. Liana sat up and quickly said that wasn't the reason, but right then the pain in her body hit her all at once. Ray asked if something else was wrong. Liana said nothing was. Ray realized that Liana was probably curious about Suglunst. Liana said she understood that some things were hard for people to talk about. She also knew that Ray likely didn't want to speak about that person either. Ray agreed with that in his mind, but he couldn't believe that a young girl was being so thoughtful toward him. It made him feel ashamed of himself. Ray then explained that Suglunst used to be his teammate in the same adventuring group a long time ago. He thought it was a good time to tell Liana about this, especially since she would continue helping him from now on. He wanted her to understand more about his past. He mentioned that their group was called the Gunkin Odongwa. After Ray told her the story, Liana got upset and asked what he meant by that. Ray repeated that he had been a bad white mage and that he was left behind. Liana remembered that Ray had returned from the S-rank dungeon called the Labyrinth. She asked, clearly angry, how that made him a bad white mage. Ray finally realized that was the part she was upset about. Liana wondered why Ray had so little confidence, especially when he was clearly very strong, but Ray insisted it was the truth. He felt he had failed again. He had let her be in danger, even after promising to protect her. Then, Liana suddenly grabbed his head, pulled him close, and held him against her chest in a hug. Ray was confused but stayed still as he listened to her heartbeat. He quietly asked what she was doing. Liana said he was a great person. After all, he had gone through such a hard and lonely path all on his own. When Ray heard those words, he remembered how painful it was when his party left him behind. But that wasn't the part that hurt the most. What truly hurt was the time he spent trying so hard, going on adventures, doing all the chores, and studying magic on his own. Even when everyone else was asleep, he stayed up late using a small light, practicing how to fight in battle. Thinking about those days made him feel both sad and nostalgic. He had worked so hard because he didn't want to be alone. He didn't want to be thrown away. This was when he realized just how lonely he had been, and tears started falling from his eyes. Liana reminded him that she was his ally. It was expected since she was his slave, but still, she said she truly admired him from the bottom of her heart. Ray felt something warm grow inside him. He thanked Liana while wiping away his tears. Liana smiled, but then quickly realized that she had acted in a way that might have seemed rude or out of place. Ray told her it was all right. Thanks to her, the heavy feeling he had been carrying was finally gone. Liana shyly said he was welcome. Ray couldn't help but smile at her cuteness. Then he asked her to stop speaking to him so formally. Liana became nervous and asked if that meant he didn't want to be her master anymore. She thought he was about to abandon her and started crying. Ray was surprised and asked how she came to that idea. He reminded her that she told him he was lonely, and he agreed. He didn't want things to stay that way. He wanted them to be equals. He wanted her to be by his side, not below him, but close to him. He said it had been a request. She said she understood. She promised that she would always be by his side no matter what happened. He thanked her. Then he said there was one more thing she needed to know. He explained that his goal on this journey was to find a certain slave. He wanted to tell her about Nenemoa. Liana understood the main idea. Ray had come to the royal capital to search for Nenemoa, who had been separated from him. Ray explained that it was a common story among slaves, becoming friends and then getting split apart. Even if he went to the slave registration office, there was a chance he wouldn't be able to find her. Still, he wanted to try his best. If she was in trouble, he wanted to help her. It wasn't just because of a promise he made. Ray truly wanted to help Nenemoa because he liked her. He wanted to be someone she could count on. Liana asked if Nenemoa was someone special to him. Ray said yes. Nenemoa had saved him many times. But he also made it clear that he valued Liana just as much. Liana let out a small which made Ray nervous. He started to wonder if he had said something wrong. Liana quickly covered her face, which had turned red. Ray thought to himself that both girls were important to him. Meeting them brought peace to his heart. Actually, there was a third person he almost forgot. It was Norn. He had promised to introduce Liana to Norn someday, since he believed they would get along well. He wondered how Norn was doing. At that moment, Norn sneezed loudly. Someone nearby asked if she had caught a cold. Norn said she couldn't have a cold since she was just a soul. She guessed someone might be talking about her, but she had no idea who it could be. Later on in the southern part of the royal capital called Suzaku, the streets were busy with people, but Ray stayed inside a building waiting for something. A man soon arrived with news about Nenemoa, which he got from one of his co-workers. Ray was surprised to hear something so quickly. The man explained that it was normal for them to find slaves who matched what their clients were looking for, whether it was their looks, family background, or abilities. That was their job as slave advisors. Ray then went to the slave registration office in the central area. Slave traders from different places came here almost every day. They brought slaves they had raised or captured, registered them, and waited for buyers. Ray thought he might find some clues about Nenemoa here, but he didn't expect to learn anything so easily. The advisor told him that Nenemoa hadn't changed her name and had already been sold. Ray asked if he was sure. The advisor said it was true and that another advisor recently handled the sale. Since it was based on that person's report, it was considered reliable information. Ray asked if they could at least tell him who bought her. The advisor hesitated. Ray understood that keeping the buyer's identity secret was normal in this kind of work. But then, the advisor said he would share the name, only if Ray promised to keep it between them. Ray was surprised the advisor was so willing to share that kind of detail. It made him question how professional this person really was. The advisor claimed he was someone who built trust with his clients and would keep Ray's secret too. He asked Ray to keep his help a secret as well. Ray wasn't sure if he should trust him, but in the end, he agreed and asked for the buyer's name. The advisor then told him that Nenemoa's current owner was a powerful noble named Duke Argon. Meanwhile, in a dark basement, a hooded man was carefully studying the mixture of something he had been working on. While focusing on it, he suddenly remembered that more slaves were supposed to arrive that day. Someone knocked on the door and he told them to come in. Surprisingly, it was Vegan. The hooded man asked if Vegan had something to report and hoped it was good news. Vegan said it was. He explained that his familiar had made contact. The white mage had finally arrived in the royal capital. Hearing this, the hooded man felt pleased. He had been waiting for Ray's arrival and wanted to meet him right away. He imagined that Ray's heart would be a perfect work of art, a thick black liquid hidden under a beautiful surface, with shifting colors between them. He wanted to turn Ray into his next masterpiece, just like he did with the girl before. Vegan also had another update. He said that the holy knight they captured recently had fully changed into an adult, which meant the experiment was a success. Based on monster strength levels, the subject would now be ranked as an S-class. The hooded man thought that was excellent news, and asked if the subject still had their thoughts and memories. Vegan confirmed it. The person still remembered who they were and acted human. He said it was a perfect example of the fiend that the hooded man had talked about before. Then, Vegan congratulated the hooded man, who was revealed to be Alfurk, one of the 4 deadly demons. With an SSS ranking, Alfurk said it was a great day. A new ally had been born, and the user of creation magic had arrived. Everything was going in the right direction for him. He then told Vegan to share the news with Duke Argon. Alfurk was sure the Duke would be thrilled with how well the experiment turned out. Ray was about to meet Nenemoa again, but he wasn't sure if they could talk like they used to. She might even think he was already dead. Still, Ray wanted to keep the promise they had made, to help her if she ever got into trouble. Now that he had more strength and skill, he wanted to use them for her. Most of all, he wanted to help her escape her life as a slave. But just before he could focus on finding her, an image of his younger self appeared and called out to him. The younger Ray asked if he truly planned to take Nenemoa away. Ray began to doubt himself. How could he promise such a thing when he hadn't done anything meaningful yet? Once again, he was seeing the illusion of his younger self. This version of him reminded Ray that he hadn't even killed anyone since leaving the dungeon. Ray believed that there was no need for killing. Whether someone was good or bad, it was better to save lives if they could still be saved. Even if a person had done something wrong like Atra, they could still try to make up for it. Ray also had no reason to fight demons unless they hurt humans first. If they didn't attack, he had no reason to kill them. He faced the illusion and asked what it really wanted to say. The illusion answered that Ray was just scared. Scared to kill humans or demons, especially ones that looked like him. It warned him that he would regret this fear. His kindness, his hesitation would one day come back to hurt him, even though he held great power in his hands. Then the illusion pointed a knife at Nenemoa's neck. It said that even if Ray wanted to save her, he still couldn't do anything when it really mattered. It claimed that Ray was already too late. Ray then saw Nenemoa's head fall and roll on the ground. He shouted her name and woke up, breathing heavily. He quickly realized it was only a dream. But Ray wasn't sure if it was just a dream. That same illusion kept appearing now and then, always showing the same terrible scenes and repeating the same cruel words, especially the part about him being too late. The image of Nenemoa stayed in his mind, and a growing sense of worry began to build inside him. The next morning, Liana asked if they were going to visit Duke Argon's residence. Ray said yes, but explained that they probably wouldn't see Nenemoa since it was an unplanned visit. Then the memory of Nenemoa's head from the dream flashed in his mind again, and he froze in place. Liana noticed and asked if something was wrong. Ray simply told her he was thinking about something else. He suggested they eat breakfast first since it was important to stay strong. Deep inside, Ray made a promise to himself. He would meet Nenemoa no matter what. At Duke Argan's mansion, a group of holy knights complained about the delayed welcome. They also mentioned how large the mansion was. Tarazed agreed. It truly was big. He had heard that the mansion contained several research labs focused on creating magic to fight demons and the Demon Lord's army. Researchers from many parts of the world had come to work there. But this visit wasn't just a normal one. It was actually a secret investigation. Rumors had been spreading that Duke Argan might be working with demons. A recent story about a demon spotted during an extermination mission could have been true. A few months earlier, Tarazed had sent one of his men, Neil, to act as a researcher and gather information, but just a few days ago, they lost contact with him. The rest of the team started to worry. Zell hoped that Neil was still safe. Lime thought Neil was probably doing fine. Verna reminded the group that Neil was very skilled, strong enough to be compared to a ruby-ranked fighter. Garam said that was the main reason Neil had been chosen for the mission. Taraz then told the group that if the Duke really had links to demons, they would arrest him. He also reminded everyone to stay alert. Zell mentioned that they had 5 holy knights with them, including the captain. Tarazed lightly hit his arm and told him to take the mission seriously and not to let his guard down. At that moment, Tarazed felt like death was right behind him, ready to strike at any second. A cold chill went through his body, and he quickly became alert because of the sudden wave of killing intent. But when he looked over his shoulder, no one was there. Someone nearby said this kind of pressure was normal when the captain was around. The hooded man thought he had hidden himself well enough not to be noticed, but Tarazed's sharp senses still picked up on him. Realizing that the killing intent came from the hooded man, Tarazed asked for his name. The man apologized and said that he should introduce himself. He was holding someone's head. When Tarazed looked again, he saw that Zell was missing. His head had been cut off cleanly. The hooded man then said he was one of the researchers. Everyone nearby was shocked as Zell's body dropped to the floor. After that, the man gave his name, Alfer. He smiled in a strange and scary way, then threw Zell's head aside like it didn't matter at all. Without waiting, Tarazed activated his sacred sword, Vinagara Dragoon. Alferk reacted right away, pulling out a scythe to block the strike. The crash of their weapons hitting each other shook the whole mansion. The sudden battle caught everyone off guard. Verna guessed that this had to be the same Alferk from the group called the 4 Death Demons. She couldn't believe a demon like him had any connection to the Duke. But Tarazed shouted that it didn't matter who Alferk was. He was going to stop him. His sacred sword suddenly released a huge burst of magical energy, destroying everything in its path. But even after that, Alferk was still standing. He even praised Tarazed for his powerful magic. The others tried to jump in and help, but Tarazed stopped them. He said he would face the demon alone. Even if they all attacked together, they wouldn't stand a chance against someone like Alferk. He refused to let his people die for nothing ever again. Meanwhile, Alferk felt that something was wrong. His magic was being drained by Tarazed's sacred sword. But it wasn't just his magic. Tarazed's sacred sword was also pulling in magic from everything and everyone around them. Tarazed tried to attack again, but he lost sight of the demon. Suddenly, Alferk appeared behind him. He remembered that the Vinagara Dragoon was a sword passed down through generations. It was also a keepsake from Tarazed's father. Alferk said that even if he got hit by it, he would not be harmed. Tarazed was shocked. He wondered how Alferk knew the sword came from his father. He had only told the king during the weapon certification in the audience hall. He had no family left, so the only explanation was that someone in the audience hall had leaked the secret. Just as he feared, someone close to the king was working with the demons. Tarazed started to think about how much influence the demons already had over the kingdom. He realized he needed to get more information from Alferk. Tarazed wondered why a powerful demon like Alferk had come to the human world, especially since he used to work directly under the Demon Lord. Alferk explained that the current Demon Lord had become weak. The previous one, whom they had followed loyally, had been killed by a hero. Now the former Demon Lord's daughter had taken his place. Tarazed was shocked to hear this. Alferk admitted he hadn't meant to share such a big secret, but he didn't care much either way. He didn't respect the new Demon Lord because she kept talking about making peace with humans. That idea annoyed him. He felt she didn't understand the suffering demons had faced, the pain, the way they were hunted, and how they were forced to live in the dry and lifeless demon lands. To him, a young girl like her could never understand any of it. Alferk then gave them a cold look. Just then, a monster suddenly showed up and tackled Lime. Alferk announced that the 4 heavenly death demons would carry on the will of the former Demon Lord. The monster threw Lime toward Tarazed. Alferk shouted that this was the start of their plan to take control of the human world. Tarazed and his team were too shocked to respond. The monster in front of them was Tarazed remembered how proudly Neil had offered to handle the investigation and promised to uncover the Duke's secrets. Alferk had known how important Neil was to Captain Tarazed, so he brought Neil here on purpose to mess with him. Tarazed shouted at Alferk in anger, but Alferk just smiled, clearly happy with his reaction. But he wasn't finished yet. Since one emotional blow wasn't enough, he decided to hurt the others too. More monsters appeared and surrounded the Holy Knights. Alferk, with a mocking grin, told them to enjoy the chaos while it lasted. While Ray and Liana were still walking toward Duke Argan's mansion, they saw a cat along the road. Liana stopped to look at it because she thought it was really cute. She wondered if it didn't have a home. Ray noticed it didn't have a collar and said it probably was a stray. He let out a small laugh and Liana turned to him, curious about why he laughed. Ray explained that he thought she was talking to the cat and he guessed that she must like cats. Liana said she did. Since they were already talking about things they liked, Ray asked her if there was anything else she liked. With a playful tone, Liana said she liked the way Ray smiled earlier. Her answer made Ray think about something from his past. He remembered what Nenemoa once told him. She warned him that slaves who looked too sad wouldn't be picked and might get punished. To help him, she taught him how to smile. At first, Ray didn't think it would help, especially when Nenemoa made silly faces just to get him to laugh, but little by little it worked. He slowly learned how to smile in a natural way. Nenemoa even told him once that she liked his smile too. Liana noticed that Ray had gone quiet and asked if something was bothering him. Ray said it was nothing and told her that her kind words just made him feel a little shy. He thanked her and said he liked her smile too. Liana blushed and thanked him back. The cat let out a soft meow, almost like it understood the sweet moment they were sharing. Afterward, Ray and Liana finally reached the front of the Duke's mansion. But Ray noticed a strong and familiar magic aura surrounding the building. Just as he expected from a noble's home, the mansion was protected by barrier masters. Liana asked what that meant, and Ray explained that barrier masters were different from regular mages and holy knights. Unlike them, barrier masters didn't rely on spirits. They had a special way of using magic that focused only on creating barriers. A truly skilled barrier master could even create something stronger than the Divine Gate, which was normally controlled by the Divine Tree Keepers. In fact, the only barrier masters in the whole country came from the Vidrador family. It was a secret skill that only their family could use. Because their magic was so useful, they charged a very high fee for their services. Seeing how the barrier was still active, Liana realized how loyal the Vidrador family was to their clients. Ray thought it made sense that the Duke had ties to the Vidrador family. After all, Loki was the third son of that family. Since Suglinst had already returned, Ray wondered if Loki was still recovering. Even so, there wasn't much Ray could do about them now. He knew he had to focus on finding Nenemoa. At that moment, the slave advisor from before showed up again and said it was just a coincidence that they met. But Ray felt something strange about it. Liana asked who the man was. Ray simply said he was the advisor who told him where to find Nenemoa. The man then realized he forgot to introduce himself. He gave his full name, Canon Orthos Kronos. He had forgotten to tell Ray his name the other day. When Ray heard the last name Kronos, it sounded familiar. Canon was part of the Kronos family, a well-known bloodline of sword saints. Many people born into this family were naturally skilled with swords. Those who proved their strength could earn the rare title of Sword Saint and join the hero's party. The Kronos family had kept this noble tradition going for many generations. Ray remembered hearing the name Canon before. He thought it might be connected to Himeno. He guessed Canon came to him because of her, and he was right. Canon admitted that was true. He didn't know how much Ray already knew, but he explained that his sister, Himeno, had lost her eyesight and some of her limbs. She couldn't live a normal life anymore. Canon asked Ray to heal her. In return, Canon promised to arrange a private meeting between Ray and Duke Argan. Even though Ray wasn't treated like one anymore, he still had noble blood. If Ray healed Himeno, Canon would make sure the meeting happened. This helped Ray understand why Canon was being so helpful. He wanted to put Ray in his debt. Still, Ray couldn't forget what Himeno had done to him in the past. He didn't really want to use Canon's influence, but he also knew that getting a meeting with the Duke on his own would be nearly impossible. Since the Kronos family was also noble, the Duke would be more likely to agree to a meeting if Canon asked. Ray didn't have much of a choice, so he agreed. But he warned Canon that if Himeno's magic circuits were already destroyed, he wouldn't be able to fully restore her eyes. At best, he could give her normal eyesight, but without magic circuits, she wouldn't be able to use magic or aura again. She would never fight again. Canon said that was okay. If Ray could at least give her new eyes and help her live a simple, normal life, that would be enough. Just then, a memory from Ray's past came back to him. It reminded him of the time when Himeno had left him behind. Canon added that he would make sure his sister faced the consequences of her actions. He already knew what had happened about how Ray had been removed from the group and abandoned inside the dungeon. Canon explained that although Himeno looked strong on the outside, she had moments when she felt weak. She had told him that she regretted what she did to Ray, and that the guilt was too heavy to carry alone. That was why she had admitted everything to her brother. Ray struggled to believe that someone like Himeno could feel any guilt. Still, he agreed to help, but only if he could meet Nenemoa. Canon gave his word that he would make it happen. Ray noticed something new in Canon's eyes. He could tell that Himeno was truly important to him. As Ray thought more about the past, another memory came to him. He asked Canon if he knew a black mage named File who had also been part of Himeno's group. He wanted to find out what had happened to her. Canon quietly explained that File had protected Himeno and the others, and had died because of it. Ray stood in silence, unable to move. Meanwhile, Alfurk was relaxing with a glass of wine. He mentioned that Neil now had an S rank as a monster, and yet he still hadn't been defeated. He said he expected that from the well-known Terrazed squad. Even while they were fighting other demons, Vegan showed up and pointed out how the other demons were taken down so quickly, even though they weren't considered weak. Alfurk offered him a glass of wine and said it was a special branded one, but Vegan turned it down for now. Alfurk then turned his focus back to Terrazed and his team as they fought the monsters. He saw how each member stood out, and their teamwork with their captain was impressive. Their coordination was so good, it even outclassed an SS-ranked adventurer group. Suddenly, a loud man started complaining about how messy the mansion was. He said that even if the barrier kept things hidden from outsiders, Alfurk was still going too far. This man was Duke Argon. He couldn't believe that Alfurk hadn't handled the intruders yet, especially since he had an important guest arriving soon. Terrazed was shocked that Argon had been working with the demons. Argon told him not to raise his voice because he could hear just fine. He also said there was no need to pretend. He already knew Terrazed was aware of everything before coming. Then he told Terrazed to be quiet and give up. Alfurk then apologized to Terrazed and said the party was over because someone else was about to arrive. But Terrazed didn't care about what they were planning. He rushed straight toward the demon and the Duke. Alfurk smiled and used a spell called Weight of the Heart. Suddenly, Terrazed and the rest of his squad were pushed down to the ground by an invisible force. It felt like a giant iron ball was crushing him. His whole body ached and he couldn't breathe. Alfurk asked how the spell felt and if they could still move. He explained that the power of Weight of the Heart was linked to a person's feelings. The spell placed a heavy force on someone based on how strong their emotions were. The deeper and stronger a person's feelings, the heavier the pressure became. The reason they couldn't move now was likely because of their deep anger toward Alfurk and their grief over Terrazed's fallen comrades. Then, Alfurk increased the power to level 2. Terrazed screamed in pain, and the demon enjoyed hearing it. Alfurk said the spell could go up to level 5 and wondered how much longer Terrazed could last. Just then, Argon shouted at Alfurk and reminded him of their original plan, to turn Terrazed into a demon. He told him not to waste a valuable holy night. Alfurk quickly apologized for forgetting. He agreed that killing Terrazed would be a waste. Meanwhile, Terrazed just wanted to help his squad escape. He tried to move, but a sudden force crushed his legs. Alfurk saw this and said it was a shame that his legs were broken, but added that it was fine since they could always attach new demon legs later. Terrazed felt sorry for both his fallen comrades and those who were still suffering under the same heavy spell. At that moment, a powerful attack suddenly hit Alfurk. Even the demon was caught by surprise and thrown across the floor. The force was strong enough to break the spell, and Terrazed realized he could move again. He looked around, wondering who had just arrived. Then, near the entrance, a familiar voice called out to him, asking why he was there. Terrazed was shocked. It was Ray. On the other side of the room, Alfurk slowly stood back up, smiling. Kanan and Liana caught up with Riai and found the whole place in chaos. Riai went over to Teray's side and asked if he was okay. The captain asked why Riai had come. Riai said he came to speak with Duke Argon, but he had smelled blood from outside and felt a strong wave of magic. He believed the man he had just knocked away was a demon. Based on the level of power, Riai thought the demon was beyond the SS class. Terrazed confirmed that the man was Alfurk, one of the 4 heavenly death demons. Alfurk then smiled and said Riai was rude for breaking the door during their first meeting, even though he had wanted to meet him for a long time. Riai remembered that this was the demon who had sent the undead terror after him and had pushed Atra to work with demons. Terraz then revealed that Duke Argon had been working with Alfurk. In simple terms, the Duke had been helping demons. The Duke then looked at Riai, recognizing him as the white mage Alfurk had mentioned. At that moment, Riai felt something inside him tell him to look ahead. He was surprised that this presence appeared at such a time. His inner self in his mind said he would finally see Ninamoa again and pointed him in her direction. Ri turned his head and froze. Seeing his reaction, Terraz asked what was wrong. Kanan and Liana also wondered what had caught his attention. Alfurk noticed where Ri was looking and realized he was staring at Ninamoa. He asked what kind of connection Ri had with her and described her as a red-haired girl. Ninamoa was on the wall, with wings growing from her back as she curled her body. Ri felt confused when he saw her. His inner self inside him called her beautiful. Alfurk then asked what Ri thought of her. He explained that Ninamoa's soul was gone, but she had grown wings and become a demon. He said she had reached a form of beauty beyond humans and described her as both strange and striking. Ri could not believe what he heard. Alfurk said that her soul was no longer there. Ri could not deny it because it meant only one thing. His inner thoughts told him that Ninamoa was already dead, but he refused to accept it. Liana grew worried when she saw his angry expression. Vegan watched from the side and smirked. Alfric told Ray not to make such a face and waved his hand. Therese realized the demon was about to use his power again. He tried to warn everyone and told them to run. However, he was too late. Alfric said Ray's reaction excited him. He used his ability Weight of the Heart. Ray, Liana and Cannon fell to the ground. Cannon called out to Liana in a weak voice. Alfric walked toward Ray and pointed out that his emotions were unstable. He wondered if the slave girl was really that important to him. He then apologized and said Nanamoa could not survive the demonification process. He said it was tragic that she suffered and died. Ray's eyes filled with anger. He admitted that Nanamoa was important to him. Because of that, he would not forgive Alfric. Ray managed to stand up. Alfric found his expression interesting. He told Rhea to show more of his power, creation magic. Rhea suddenly appeared in front of him and swung his knife at his neck. Rhea thought he had succeeded, but Alfric stopped him. He grabbed Rhea's face and slammed him to the ground. He then asked if Rhea really thought he could win by rushing in like that. At that moment, Alfric noticed a strong surge of magic from Rhea's left hand. The ground around them exploded. Alfric escaped just in time. He was surprised by the power Rhea released. Using the cloud of dust in the area, Rhea moved quietly behind the demon. He tried to launch a surprise attack, but Alfric blocked it. Rhea said he would kill him no matter what and shouted in anger. Alfric seemed more excited by this. Rhea kept attacking and swore to kill the demon. Alfric dodged and blocked each strike. Rhea then remembered the past when Nanamoa treated his wounds. He swore to kill the demon who had taken her life. Before he could continue, Alfric kicked him in the chin. Rhea's head snapped back, but he stayed on his feet. Rhea said he was not done. Alfric followed with a punch to his stomach. Ray threw up what he had eaten earlier. He looked at Alfric's calm face and thought he had to kill him for Nanamoa. Alfric kept beating him. As it continued, Ray remembered Nanamoa's smile. He kept telling himself that the demon was her enemy. He healed himself, and his wounds disappeared. He thought he needed more power and drew more aura from Yggdrasil to defeat him. Ray moved faster and slipped behind the demon again. He tried to stab him with his knife, but Alfric caught his hand with ease. He warned Ray not to draw more aura from Yggdrasil, since his human body could not handle it. He said that if Ray continued, his body would fail and he would die. He also said it would be a problem for him. Alfric said it was still not enough, but he had confirmed Ray's aura and healing. He paused and then suggested playing a game. Ray felt confused. Alfric let go of his hand and told him to listen. Alfric spread his arms and said this was a rare chance, but it would also be Ray's last. He told Ray to begin. Ray could either stab his heart or cut his throat with his knife. Ray felt confused and shocked. He did not understand what the demon was saying or what he wanted. His thoughts became messy. He started to think it was a trap. He believed the demon wanted him to lower his guard so he could attack. He also thought the demon might be playing with him and treating him like a toy. Alfric told him to start any time. He wondered if Ray could really take his life. Ray decided it did not matter if it was a trap or not. He still wanted to kill the demon. He pointed his knife at the demon's chest. Alfric asked what was wrong. He had just seen how badly Ray wanted to kill him. He told Ray to take the life of the enemy of Nanamoa and to go on. Ray could not push the knife forward. He did not understand why his body would not move. He knew he had to kill the demon. One thrust was enough to end Alfric's life. He wanted to avenge Nanamoa. Then inner self pointed out how weak he was. Ray froze in place. Alfric tapped Ray's forehead and called him innocent. He used his skill called Weight of the Heart again. This power controlled gravity based on emotions, but it could also move memories. It allowed him to pull memories from one person and place them into another. The memory he placed into Ray showed what happened to Nanamoa. She had been turned into a place where parasitic demon beasts grew against her will. She screamed in pain as the creatures crawled over her body and moved in and out of her. The pain did not stop. Over time, she slowly changed into a demon. Part of the memory showed Vigan hurting Nanamoa while she could not fight back. When Ray saw this, his mouth foamed. His inner hatred grew stronger, and he now focused his anger on Vigan. Liana watched Ray fall to the ground and lose consciousness. She could not believe he had been defeated. Alfric smirked as he looked at Ray, who lay there with foam at his mouth and his eyes rolled upward. Everyone then watched the demons place something on the ground. Taraz felt worried about Ray. His soldiers and Liana stayed silent as they watched. Kanan tried to move, but something held him in place. Vegan asked if the setup was enough. He had already placed the unconscious Ray on a large cross. Alfric praised him for the work. Vegan accepted the praise. Alfric then tore Ray's clothes and began to study his body. He said Ray's healing ability was impressive. His attack should have broken Ray's bones and damaged his organs. Alfric became excited. He said this result matched what he expected. Ray's ability was not healing magic. Instead, Ray restored his body using creation magic. When Taraz heard this, he felt shocked and confused. Alfric then looked at him and the others and asked if they were curious. He believed they were. He grabbed Taraz's chin and said anyone would feel curious after hearing that. He thought the others felt the same. Liana stayed silent, but her face showed curiosity. Alfric then explained that creation magic was different from normal healing magic. It used a strong aura that no human body could handle. Even so, Ray managed to use it. Alfric said this was because of Ray's right eye, which was powered by energy from Yggdrasil. He added that this energy was not the same as magic power or the divine power used by Terrazit and the others. He said Ray used a type of energy that was greater than both. He called this energy life force mana. Everyone in the area felt shocked. Liana asked what mana meant. Kanan started to understand something about Ray's true identity. Taraz tried to say something about the hero, but Alfric cut him off. He said the captain was thinking the right thing. He exclaimed that only people who carried the hero's blood could use mana. This meant Ray came from the hero's bloodline. Liana felt shocked by this. Alfric said that was not all. He explained that Ray's aura had strong healing power, just like the hero known as the strongest in history, Norn in Belgia. This surprised Terrazit. Alfric then said it was a shame. He explained that creation magic could create many things, but Ray had limited himself. This might have been because he lacked imagination or for another reason. Alfric found this unfortunate. He said that if Ray used the full power of this magic, he could match or even surpass him. The Duke then spoke and asked if what Alfric said was true. He could not believe Alfric had not told him about the white mage with the hero's bloodline. Alfric said he kept it secret because it was still being investigated. The Duke looked angry, but he chose to move on. He asked if they could carry out their plan by using Ray. Alfric smiled and said yes. He explained that he had already broken Ray's mind with his power. If he added false memories, Ray would become their soldier. He would become very strong, stronger than any other being. However, Ray would need a demon body that could handle mana. Alfric said this was possible using Ray's own creation magic. Everyone held their breath after hearing this. Alfric laughed and said Ray was very useful. The Duke felt pleased and told Alfric to take them all to the laboratory. Alfric agreed and told Vigan to act. Liana and the others could not move as Vigan walked toward them. Liana trembled as fear took over her. Vigan reached out his hand toward her. Liana then cried out Ray's name. Meanwhile, Ray found himself in a place with no light. Everything around him was dark. He thought he had heard Liana and wondered where he was. Then he remembered how Alfric had defeated him. His inner self began to speak. It told him he was weak and useless. It pointed out how he had failed again. The word again stayed in his mind. Rhea started to believe it. He called himself worthless and thought Loki had been right. He realized how foolish he had been. His inner self continued. It said that if he had not let Vegan go before, Nenemoa would not have suffered. Rhea then remembered Nenemoa. Even so, his inner self said someone else might have killed her anyway. It brought up Vaden village. It said Rhea had wasted time there. If he had gone to the capital sooner, he could have saved Nenemoa. Rhea thought about the villagers. They had needed help and he could not leave them. But his inner self did not stop. It said Rhea had also wasted time helping the divine tree keeper. It said he should have just killed him and moved on. It went on to say that if Ray had gone to fight the werewolves and reached the capital sooner, things might have been different. Ray kept thinking about it. His inner self then said he should have left Yggdrasil earlier. If he had, he might have arrived in time. Ray agreed with all of it. He asked himself why he was so weak. He had been so close to getting revenge for Nenemoa, but he failed even at that. His inner self said it was impossible for him. It said he was a coward who cried over everything. Ray accepted that. He thought that even the power he got from Yggdrasil meant nothing. He felt small and unimportant. His inner self reminded him of what Fael had once said. Fael had told him he was too kind. His heart was too weak to carry the weight of the lives he had taken. His kindness would only bring him pain. Rai agreed now. Even though Nenemoa had said his kindness was good, he believed he had only been running away. He tried to protect his heart from breaking. He kept making excuses. He always looked down and trembled. He fought, hoping someone would need him, but it felt useless. He believed he had always been the weakest. He felt tired of everything. His inner self told him to rest. It said it was enough. No matter how hard he tried, he would never achieve anything. It said saving others was impossible because he could not even save himself. Ray agreed. He decided to sleep. He thought that this time, he would try to save himself by resting. He was tired of the pain, tired of the suffering. He closed his eyes. The darkness felt calm and safe. He drifted into a quiet sleep. It felt like a gentle end. He thought this was what he had always wanted. He did not want to think anymore. He just wanted peace. Then someone called his name. The darkness faded. Rie opened his eyes and saw someone he knew. It was Nenemoa. She said it had been a while. Rie felt shaken when he saw Nenemoa appear in front of him. He tried to ask how she got there. Nenemoa scratched her head and said she did not know. She laughed it off. Rie then asked if she was really Nenemoa. He said her soul should have been destroyed. He wondered if she was just an illusion. Nenemoa felt shocked and got angry. She ran toward him and asked how he could doubt her. She gave him a light punch on the forehead. She reminded him of the times he wet the bed and the times he said he felt lonely and asked her to sleep beside him. She pouted at him. Ray said sorry. He felt her presence and knew it was real. There was no doubt that she was Nenemoa. Nenemoa said it was good that he understood. She told him to stand up instead of sitting. She said she could not believe how much he had changed since the last time she saw him. He had become someone she felt proud of. Rei thanked her in a shy way. He also said she had become very beautiful. Nanamoa said that was sweet. Rei repeated that it was true. Nanamoa told him to keep praising her and laughed. Rei could not hold it anymore. Tears fell from his eyes. He said he was too late and apologized to Nanamoa for being late. Nanamoa told him not to say that. She rested her head against his and said she was happy because she saw him one last time like that. Rei kept crying as he looked at her and said her name. Nanamoa smiled, though tears formed at the corners of her eyes. Rei then noticed her body becoming transparent and started to panic. Nanamoa calmly said her time was up. Rei said he would follow her soon. He asked her to wait for him because he did not want to leave her alone. Nanamoa paused for a moment and shook her head. She said it was not his time yet. Rei tried to argue, but she pressed a finger to his lips and stopped him. She asked if there was really no one left for him. Rei asked what she meant. Nanamoa said there were still people important to him. She believed he still had someone. Rei thought about her words. Nanamoa told him he could still do it. He started to believe he could, but deep inside he still doubted himself. With his inner self glaring at him, he felt he could not do it anymore. Before he could say it, Nanamoa grabbed his hand. She told him he could still do it because he was strong. She said she knew it. Rei stayed silent. He still believed it was impossible because he saw himself as weak. At that moment, Rei remembered Liana's cheerful face. He froze. He thought about her and asked himself if he could accept her death. He wondered if he could let her face it alone. He asked himself if he was ready to lose her, the one who stayed with him when he had nothing. He thought about her future. He then made a choice. He grabbed Nanamoa's hand and decided to try. Nanamoa saw the change in his expression. She wanted him to do his best and gave him a kiss on the forehead. She looked happy as she said goodbye. Ritha did not stop her from leaving. He gave a sincere farewell as he watched her fade away. After that, the darkness returned. Ritha's inner self laughed. Ritha glared at him. His inner self questioned what he had just done. It doubted Rei and asked how he could save Liana when he was so weak. It reminded him of how he had been played with before. It said his efforts would mean nothing. It mocked him and questioned how he could keep his promise in his current state. It found him amusing. Rei stayed silent. His inner self clicked its tongue and asked if Rei wanted to be toyed with by Alfric again. It told him to stop and said it would be better to give up. It asked if he really wanted to go through that pain again. It called him insane. Rei finally responded. He said he would not run anymore. His inner self reacted and said this was not about running. It explained that humans and demons were different in every way. As long as Rei was human, he had no chance of winning. It said that no matter how hard he tried, the result would be the same. Either the demon would destroy him or his own mana would consume him from within. It told him once again to give up. Rei came to a conclusion. He thought he had to stop being human. This idea shocked him at first, and part of him wanted to give up. Rei felt he had reached his limit. He believed that if he could not protect anything as a human, then there was no reason to stay human. His inner self agreed. It seemed better than losing everything again. Still, his inner self asked if he knew what people called someone like him. The answer was simple. People called them fools. Rei's behavior changed. His left eye released a strong flow of mana. In the end, his inner self accepted his choice. It decided to give its soul to him and told Rei to take everything. Rei then asked Yggdrasil to consume his soul. At that moment, Liana felt that something was wrong. The Duke told Alfric to check what was happening. Alfric, Vegan, and the others looked over. Alfric stared at Rei as he suddenly broke free from his restraints. As Rei spoke, Vegan's left arm was cut off from his shoulder. The arm fell to the ground. Vegan was shocked. Rei stood in front of Liana and reminded the large lizard of what he had said before. Rei's right eye gave off even more mana. He said he would kill Vegan if they met again. Vegan stayed silent for a moment. He felt like he was facing a monster. Then he tried to attack with his remaining arm and swung his weapon. Rei moved first. He punched Vegan in the face and sent him flying into a nearby wall. The Duke called out in worry as dust filled the air. When the dust cleared, he saw Vegan's body without a head. Alfric walked toward the body. Liana could not believe how Rei was acting. The hand he used to punch Vegan had broken fingers and was covered in blood. Rei looked at his injured hand and calmly used heal on himself. When Alfric heard this, he turned back to Rei. Rei told him that he would not let him escape. He then showed his healed hand. His eyes burned with mana as he smiled. Everyone held their breath as Rei declared that he would not let Alfric escape. Alfric felt pleased when he heard this. He released a strong aura and brought out his weapon, a scythe. He wanted Rei to fight with all his strength and show his true power. He wanted to see the power of someone who had fully fused with Yggdrasil and decide if he was worthy to serve as their soldier. Rei gave a signal that he was about to attack. The two stood still for a moment, then vanished from sight. They clashed in the middle, both smiling. Alfric then gathered magic in his palm, but Rei knocked it away with his knife. Alfric glanced to the side and avoided Rei's slash by bending backward. The mansion was getting destroyed as the fight went on. Alfred felt confused as he saw Rie keep smiling during the battle. Rie continued to attack and Alfred blocked with his scythe. Some of Rie's strikes started to pass through his defense. Alfred realized that Rie's speed was increasing and he was being pushed back. The attacks did not stop and Alfred could only block and step back. He could not believe that even with that speed and the strong aura around him, Rie's body was not breaking apart. Rie swung his knife again. This time it broke the scythe's blade and went through. The knife cut through Alfred's chest and abdomen. Alfred felt shocked. Rie followed with a kick to the left side of Alfred's head. The impact paused for a moment before the force sent Alfred flying into a wall. He looked badly hurt. He tried to stand, but then he froze when he saw something. Rie rushed toward him like a wild monster. He swung his knife at the demon, and the impact caused a strong explosion. Liana watched him with worry. As the dust cleared, Alfred stood up again. He had taken clear damage from the attack. He struggled to breathe as he got back on his feet. Rie then appeared on the second floor and called out to him. He asked what was wrong and could not believe the demon was already tired. He reminded Alfred that he wanted to see his power. Alfred stood still with a serious look as he studied Rie. He let out a small laugh. He thought Rie was impressive in this state. His strength caught Alfred's interest. He did not know how Rie had fully merged with Yggdrasil, but Rie's speed and power had gone beyond what he could handle. Rie attacked again and closed the distance in an instant. At that moment Alfred realized that Rie was no longer human. While Rie and Alfred continued to fight, the others used the chance to break free. Liana destroyed the binding stones and chains. Taraz thanked her. She felt relieved that she could remove the bindings. Taraz then asked her to free the others as well. Suddenly someone was thrown nearby. The group looked over and saw Alfred. He was injured and covered in wounds. Blood ran from the knife cuts across his body and he struggled to breathe. Rie stepped out of the dust with his right arm missing. He calmly picked up the severed arm and reattached it using heal. Alfred was shocked. Even a lost arm could be restored at once with creation magic. If the damage was not enough, and as long as Rie still had aura, any lost limb could return. There was also a clear gap in their physical strength. The demon realized he could not defeat Rie in close combat. Rie then asked if it was time to end the fight. Alfred calmly agreed. He still had one last move, his ability called Weight of the Heart. He used it on Rie. A strong force of gravity pushed Rie to the ground. Alfred laughed and said Rie was powerless against it. He asked if Rie could even move. He claimed the attack was much stronger than before. In that state, Rie could not use creation magic. Seeing Rie pinned down, Taraz stepped in and attacked Alfred. The demon quickly cast a spell and struck Taraz directly. The knight captain was hit hard, bled, and fell to the ground. Alfred complained that Taraz was getting in the way even though he could barely stand. He said he was busy and told him to stay down. At that moment, a bright light shaped like a thin branch pierced through Alfred's abdomen. The demon felt confused as he looked at the branch stuck in his lower abdomen. The wound made cracking sounds and something strange moved inside his body. Alfred sensed that something was wrong. He quickly stepped back, moving away from Rie. He struggled to breathe as he held his wound, but then he coughed up blood. At that moment he realized he was too late. He understood that Rie had pushed his aura, more precisely his mana, into his body. Alfred started to feel dizzy. He was shocked by how dense the mana was. He had never expected it to be this strong. Usually being filled with aura, the source of magic power did not cause much pain. But this level of aura was different. It acted like a poison that ate away at him from the inside. Just like oxygen could become harmful in very high amounts, his body could not handle this much aura. It began to reject it. If the aura kept flowing into him, even a powerful demon like him would break down from the inside. What shocked him even more was that Rie had been fighting while holding back this kind of power. He could not believe that such a strong and destructive force had been contained inside Rie the whole time. Rie then teasingly asked Alfred what was wrong and pointed out how stiff his face looked. Alfred soon realized that the branch beside Rie was dangerous. It sent mana into his body the moment it pierced him. He believed it was formed from Rie's aura or his mana, turned into a solid shape. Unlike before, Rie was now drawing endless mana from the fully merged Yggdrasil. Alfred understood that he could no longer fight carelessly. If the branch pierced him again and filled him with that mana, he would die for sure. It felt like being struck by death itself. He knew there was only one way to fight back. He needed to stay at a distance and weaken Rie's movement using his abilities. If he could use Weight of the Heart again, he believed he could win. At that moment, Rie showed disappointment and said this was all Alfred could do. Then he summoned something called Sephiroth. Alfred felt shocked, not because of how it looked, but because of the strong aura it gave off. A large tree with a huge mouth appeared behind Rie. The power coming from it felt greater than anything he had sensed before. He thought this was what true mana felt like. It seemed both beautiful and frightening. Rie then said he would end the fight and finish Alfred. He asked if Alfred had any last words. Alfred stood in silence for a while. He felt that something had been wrong for some time. He then noticed that his hands were shaking and they would not stop. His instincts warned him. They told him to run. He told Ray that he already understood he had no chance of winning. Even so, he reminded himself who he was. He was a proud demon, the right hand of the Demon Lord, and one of the 4 heavenly death demons. As someone who carried the will of the previous Demon Lord, he could not step away from the fight. He then questioned Ray's goal. He asked what Ray would gain by killing him. He wondered if killing everyone in the mansion would bring satisfaction. He questioned if it would bring Nenemoa back. He also wondered if revenge would be enough. When Ree stayed silent, Alfric thought he still had a chance. He said Ree misunderstood something. He explained that demons like him once lived in these lands. He believed humans were cruel and could not understand demons. He said humans forced them out of their rich lands and trapped them in the empty demon realm. He believed humans could never understand their pain and sorrow. He then used his ability, Weight of the Heart, again. This time it felt more dangerous. His body showed a clear increase in power. He had used the ability on himself. The strength of Weight of the Heart grew based on the feelings of all living things. Alfric then chose to fight to the end. While he spoke, he gathered the stored emotions of demons from the demon realm and drew out their power. As this power spread from Alfric, Tarazd realized the demon had not been using his full strength before. The strange domain around him continued to grow. Kanan warned that at this rate the entire mansion would be covered and crushed. Alfric smiled. He had already placed a barrier around the mansion, making escape impossible. As long as he lived and fought for his kind, he would destroy everything in his path. He did it all to fulfill their long-held goal of taking back their lands. Ray calmly asked if the demon had finished. Alfric felt shocked because Ray sounded calm. Ray then asked if the demon was ready to die. Sharp branches suddenly rose from the ground and pierced Alfric's body. He felt confused. This should not have been possible inside his ultra-high gravity space where no one else could move. He then realized that even the full power of his ability was useless against the tree behind Ray. The branches stopped when there was no more space left to pierce. The barrier disappeared, which surprised Tarazd. Alfric was barely alive. Ray walked up to him and stabbed his heart. Ray felt surprised that the demon was still holding on. He told him to die already. Alfric looked at what had stabbed him. It was the same knife Ray had used earlier. He laughed and reached his bloody hand toward Ray's cheek. He realized that Ray had gone beyond being human. He had already felt this during their fight. He laughed for a while and thought that even if he could not take over and rule the human realm himself, Ray could do it in his place. Ray had fully merged with Yggdrasil and had already left his humanity behind. The demon tried to keep talking about Ray's future, but Ray stopped him. He cut the demon's neck and sent his head flying. Ree said he did not like repeating himself, and he had already told the demon to die. Alfric's head rolled on the ground. Ree's tree slowly began to fade. Ree looked at his bloodied knife, then turned to Nenemoa again. He gave his final farewell. He swore that her death would not be wasted. The demons, the slaves, the corrupt nations, and everything that took from her from him would be destroyed. Ree then showed an inhuman expression once more. A while earlier, Nenemoa sat in a white space. A table with a tea set stood nearby, along with a grandfather clock. She looked confused because she had just been sleeping. She felt that she needed to leave. A voice asked if she was sure. It told her that she would not be able to return if she left. If she stayed and passed time in sleep, she could bloom again in that world. But if she went to his side, her soul would be cursed and trapped. Nenemoa thought the voice had come again. She wondered who he was. She did not know, but she felt she had to go. She needed to share the feelings in her heart. She wanted to save his sinking heart. The voice understood her and said goodbye. Nenemoa stopped in front of a dark, murky hole. It led into darkness. She asked him to wait because she was coming. She reached out her hand toward a figure in the dark. She told him not to worry because she had arrived. He called out to Ree. Then she realized that the person she had been thinking about was Ree. She jumped into the darkness to save him. She said that Ree was someone precious to her. When Nenemoa appeared, Ree opened his eyes. She said it had been a long time. Nenemoa felt that things would be all right now. She hoped Liana could take care of Ree for her. Ree swore that he would destroy everything that took her away from him. Liana walked toward him with worry. Ree turned to her and realized that even with his stained hands there were still things he could protect. No matter the cost, he decided to protect Liana. Liana called out to Ree as she moved closer, feeling nervous. Ree told her that everything was fine. He smiled and said it was over. Liana felt relieved that Ree had returned to normal, and she began to cry. She called his name and hugged him tightly. Ree felt surprised, but he gently patted her head. Tarazd walked up to them and called out to Ree. He apologized for not being helpful. Ree told him that was not true. Tarazd said that Ree had saved everyone and thanked him. Ree wondered if that was really true. Many demons had died. The holy knights were badly hurt. On his way to the room, he had seen a headless body, likely one of the captain's men. He felt that no one had truly been saved. Then the Duke shouted at them and called them bastards. He complained about the damage to his mansion and said they would not escape punishment. He said he was Duke Argon and claimed the nation would punish them. Ray grew irritated and fired an attack toward the Duke, missing on purpose to silence him. He asked the Duke who gave him the right to speak. Therese tried to remind Ray who the Duke was, but Ray said he already knew. He walked closer to the Duke and said he would take his time to hear everything from him. He warned that lies would not work on him and that he would not be kind if the Duke tried to lie. In his mind, Ray had already decided to kill him after getting the information he needed. The Duke became so scared that he lost control of himself. Therese decided to step in. He explained that Argon from the Duke family had brought demons into the royal capital and carried out large experiments. He did not know how far it had gone, but he was sure that people from the country were involved. Ray understood what the captain meant. If they harmed the Duke who worked with demons, they could be treated as criminals instead. Therese agreed and suggested that they leave the area first. Then a knight named Lime approached him. She said that as long as there was a record of them visiting the Argon estate, running away would not help. She also said that the southern territory was handled by the Vermilion Bird Division, and its captain would take action. To fight Therese, that man would use any method to place the blame on him. She explained that the man was very focused on defeating Therese. Rai asked who they were talking about. Therese said it was Captain Iori of the Vermilion Bird Division. Rai remembered hearing about him. The captain was known for acting freely and being very aggressive. Rai had never met him, but he had heard that the man would do anything to challenge strong opponents. Rai realized it would cause trouble if that man got involved. So he came up with a plan. Rai called out to Therese and made a suggestion. He said they should place all the blame on him. They could say that Rai attacked the estate and kidnapped Argon. The story would also say that the Blue Dragon Division fought him and the demons he brought. The report would explain that the Blue Dragon Division had met Rai before. They discovered his link to the demons and fought him at the Argon estate. They defeated the demons, but Rai, who planned everything, kidnapped Argon and escaped. Therese felt worried about the plan because it would make Rai a wanted criminal. Ray said that would happen sooner or later anyway. He also wanted to learn how much the country had fallen under the control of demons through the Duke. Then he suggested that they work together as allies. If Therese had lost the same things as him, Ray believed he would want to change the situation. Ray offered to work from the shadows while Therese worked in the open. He believed they could destroy the twisted system and fix the country. Therese looked at Ray's hand for a moment before making his choice. He took it and agreed to work together. Ray then said that he and Liana would take the Duke away from the capital and hide somewhere nearby. At that moment, Cannon told him to wait. He reminded him about their promise and asked if he still remembered it. Ray stayed silent for a while. He then said that Nenemoa was already dead, so he no longer had any reason to keep the promise. Cannon could not believe it. Therese wondered what was happening. Soon after, everyone heard a scream nearby. They all looked toward the entrance. Some maids and estate soldiers had arrived. They were shocked to see the place in ruins. They asked Argon if he was okay. Ray then looked at the Duke and realized he had called for help using his staff. The soldiers noticed the Holy Knights and asked what was going on. At that moment, Ray and Therese looked at each other. Ray quickly covered Liana's face with a cloth. He stomped his foot and a large tree grew from the ground. The soldiers were surprised and asked what was happening. They then heard their master shouting for someone to let go of him. They looked up and saw Ree standing on a branch. The Duke and the bodies of the demons were trapped inside the tree. Ree held Liana in his arms and said he would take the Duke with him. He said goodbye to the Holy Knights. The tree then swallowed the Duke. Ree thought the method was rough, but he planned to restrain the Duke with Yggdrasil. He also planned to take Nenemoa's body so they could stay together forever. He told Liana to hold on tight and escaped with her in his arms. Therese watched them leave and silently hoped they would get away safely. As they escaped, Ray apologized to Liana for making decisions without consulting her. Liana said it was fine because she would follow him no matter what choice he made. Ray thanked her and began to realize that she was the only one he could rely on. He decided that he would protect her at all costs until he brought an end to the twisted world. He then told her to prepare for impact because he was about to break through the barrier. He stomped the ground, gathered mana into his feet and forced his way through the thick wall. The soldiers reacted too late and only noticed a large hole in the barrier after it had already been broken. Ree told Liana that they would return to the inn to collect their luggage before leaving the royal capital. He asked her to endure a little longer. Liana replied that she was fine, but Ree could clearly see that she was exhausted. He had already reduced his speed to lessen the strain on her body, but he could not slow down any further. She had been through the fight both physically and mentally, and he knew she had reached her limit. He understood that she needed rest as soon as possible. At that moment, several women wearing robes stopped them and asked Ray to wait. Ray stopped running and recognized their clothing. He asked if they were followers of the Divine Order. One of them confirmed that they were and explained that they had been sent by the High Saintess. They were instructed to take Ray in and provide shelter if he was in danger either at the White Mage Guild or at the main headquarters of the Divine Order. Rhea looked at them with suspicion. The Church Divine Order was an organization that valued peace and worked to maintain order in the human world while helping people grow. It had 44 members. Although the group was small, all of its members had abilities comparable to a Holy Knight. In addition to its members, the organization also managed the White Mage Guild and held strong influence over the Adventurers Guild and the country itself. It was led by the High Saintess. Soon after, Liana found the flowers they were searching for. Ree thanked her for finding them and explained that the blue flower marked the gate. Liana did not expect that a flower could serve as an entrance to the church's headquarters. Ri explained that it was used to hide the entrance while also making the town look better. He added that it was normal for Liana not to know about it. Curious, Liana asked how Ri knew about the gate. Ri recalled that 5 years earlier, when he was a member of the White Mage Guild, the High Saintess had personally told him he could visit anytime he wished. Through that encounter, he learned about the hidden entrance. He then looked at the charm on his hand and remembered what had happened earlier. The two robed women had suggested that Ri might be surprised. They explained that the High Saintess had the ability to see everything through a divine power, and that she had already foreseen his situation. They also noted that he currently had no place to go, so it would be wise for him to go with them, even if only for a short time, even if there was a risk involved. They believed that with his current abilities he could handle any situation. Rie noticed something from the way they spoke. He realized that they had seen his fight at the Argon estate. He had not expected church members to be present there. Even so, as they pointed out, he had nowhere to go if he left the royal capital. Being inside the church in the royal capital would also make it easier for him to communicate with Captain Tarizd. Ray decided to accept their offer, but he explained that he needed to return to the inn first to collect his belongings. One of the robed women understood and approached him. She gave Ray an item and explained that it was a key that allowed entry through the church's gate. Ray was surprised and told her that such an important item should not be given so easily. The woman replied that the high priestess had instructed them to hand it over to him. Back in the present, Ria and Liana stood in front of the gate. Ria had not expected that the day would come when he would meet the High Saintess again. He then noticed that Liana looked shocked and asked what was wrong. Liana said she could not believe Ri had already met the High Saintess and found it impressive. She added that the High Saintess rarely left the church headquarters, yet she had come out just to meet him. Ria understood that the High Priestess had not come for him personally but because of the creation magic within him. He knew that the High Priestess valued her own safety and would only act for important reasons. Even so, Liana still found Ria impressive because the High Priestess had recognized his ability. Ria explained that at the time he did not understand the true nature of his power and thought he was only being tested. Liana found this amusing since it matched Ria's character. Ria relaxed as they talked. He then reminded her that the invitation might be a trap and that it could lead to more trouble. If that happened, he would need her help again. Liana agreed and said she would do her best. Ria thanked her and took her hand. He then used the gate key and prepared to enter. The flowers around the gate began to glow brightly and in an instant both of them disappeared. In the next moment they found themselves in front of a large town. Liana was surprised to see the headquarters of the Divine Order Church and did not expect such a place to exist within the royal capital. Ri explained that it was located inside the town and that the headquarters was so large it was almost like a small town on its own. Liana became confused by his reaction since she assumed he had been there before. Ri explained that although the High Priestess had invited him to visit, he never went, and this was his first time entering the place. Suddenly, someone greeted them and said they had been expecting Rie. They explained that they would act as guides and attendants during their stay. The calm one was Frey Leluca and the cheerful one was Mimira Senna. They were the same robed women who had given Rie the key earlier. Rie and Liana thanked them for the welcome. Mimira asked Rie if the cathedral was magnificent. Rie confirmed that it was. However, in his mind he became worried about her. Mimira began to act proud, showing her emotions openly. Ray noticed this and found it interesting to watch, but he questioned whether it was proper behavior for someone from the church. He remembered that such behavior was usually restricted, as it could lower a member's dignity. He wondered if Mimira was truly okay, especially since Frey was with her. He also thought that the rules might have become more relaxed over the years. At the same time, Frey was writing in a notebook. Ray realized that she had been recording Mimira's behavior. What concerned him more was that Frey did not correct her. He also noticed that Frey wrote something that suggested punishment. Mimira eventually noticed what Frey was doing. Her face turned pale, and she began to plead. Seeing this, Liana felt confused about what was happening. Ray judged from Mimira's reaction that she was facing some kind of strict punishment. For the moment, he could only feel sympathy for her. Mimira then looked at Ray as if asking for help, which made him uncomfortable. He did not know what to do. Seeing her cry, Ray decided to step in and asked Frey to be lenient. Frey refused, and Mimira reacted in shock. Her reaction was intense, and Ray struggled to hold back his laughter. Frey then warned Mimira that this was part of her training and that she needed to accept the punishment properly. Ray told Mimira not to react in a way that made him lose his composure while he was trying to defend her. He then spoke to Frey and mentioned that he would report her kindness and generosity to the High Priestess, suggesting that this should be enough reason to reconsider. After hearing this, Frey closed her notebook and decided to overlook the matter for the time being. Ray was surprised by how quickly she changed her decision once she saw a benefit for herself. Mimira then approached Ray and held his hand while still trembling. Ray began to wonder if all church members were like them and he felt slightly uneasy. Mimira, still tearful, thanked him. Ray was surprised by her expression and asked her to clean her face first. Seeing Ray act in this way made Liana smile. After things had settled, Frey said that the High Priestess wanted to meet Ray first before they guided him to his lodging. She asked if that would be alright. Rie felt surprised, but he thought it was better to understand why the church was helping them. He agreed because he also wanted to speak with the high priestess. Free and Mimira thanked him for agreeing. Rie believed that since the high priestess had helped him, she would likely ask for something in return. He also thought it was best to accept reasonable requests to build a cooperative relationship. Frey then offered to have the other members carry Rie's luggage if they were on the same route. After that, she asked for his hand so they could teleport directly to the high priestess's location. Rie held Frey's hand and then asked Liana to join as well. Once Liana held his hand, they disappeared. They soon arrived in a dark place that was suddenly lit by candles. In front of them stood a tent-like structure where the high priestess stayed. Seeing that the two remained quiet, Ray assumed the high priestess was nearby. A voice then came from inside the tent, welcoming Ray and Liana. The speaker introduced herself as the pontiff of the Church of Divine Order and explained that many people referred to her as the high priestess. She also expressed that she was pleased to meet them. Ray and Liana tried to introduce themselves, but the high priestess interrupted them. She apologized for not showing her face and asked them to wait. After a moment, she appeared. A young girl in a white robe with cross-like symbols on her eyes came out. She lowered her hood, thanked them for coming, and introduced herself as Luna Nuova. Liana felt surprised because Luna looked about her age. Luna laughed and explained that she was physically 17 years old, but she had lived for so long that she could no longer keep track of her age. Liana asked for clarification and Luna explained that high saintesses inherited memories and stayed connected through them. Ray further clarified that Luna carried memories and experiences from the distant past. This surprised Liana and she concluded that Luna was like a very experienced older sister figure. Luna was caught off guard by this and laughed, since no one had ever described her that way before. Ri then asked if Luna was the 13th generation, since the one he had met before was not her. Luna confirmed that her predecessor had entrusted everything to her, and she intended to carry that responsibility properly. Ri became quiet for a moment, then apologized for acting in a hurry and explained that they did not have much time. He thought about Argon, who was in a near-death state in Sephiroth and would not survive much longer. Ri then asked Luna why she was helping them. Luna admitted that she had a request and wanted their cooperation. Ri listened carefully and felt that things had gone well so far, but the real issue would come after her explanation. Luna then revealed her request, asking them to rescue a church official from a heavily guarded royal prison known as the Forbidden Shadow.